Hey everyone, and welcome back to Undoomed. Today I'm just here talking some shit with Scribe, just enjoying ourselves. We're going to talk about some sci-fi that we love. We're going to agree and disagree, and have fun about our favorite stuff in sci-fi. And in case we go off on a tangent, that's fine too. So whatever. How you doing, Scribe?
Doing all right. How about yourself? Also, happy Thanksgiving belatedly.
Oh, yeah, 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 of course. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we're
That
we're
is
in the
true.
post
That is true.
tryptophan coma territory in the last day or two.
Right,
And hey,
right,
everybody out there! I see some familiar names from my audience already here. I advertised over on Discord, so should get some peoples in here pretty quick.
right, right. Thank you for that. Some good people in the chat is always nice. Hope they come up with some interesting comments for us.
Sure.
So, like I said, I just hit you up and said, let's talk about sci-fi because I know you like sci-fi and
Mm-hmm.
you are a huge nerd.
True. It is the case that I think I've got a certificate somewhere around here that says so.
Yes, so do I. I'm a huge nerd. And so I guess I should start off with this. Um, I've become such a huge Dune nerd. What do you
I've
think about
noticed.
that?
Yeah, but I've seen you do like original music inspired by
Yes,
on your
yes, yes,
channel.
yes.
I don't know what you think about the most recent iteration of the cinematic presentation of it, but maybe I'll be in a contention with you because I don't like the new version of the story as
Okay.
presented by
But
Denis
that's fine.
Villeneuve.
You don't have to agree with me. I think it's awesome,
Hmm.
but I love it when you disagree with me.
Sure. I
Um,
mean, I appreciate the fact that it's back in the public consciousness. I mean, it's like I was sort of mentioning before when you're talking about like engagement of your new video.
mhm,
Even bad press is still press, and
sure.
so when even something that maybe I don't appreciate too much, at least brings something that I love back into the public consciousness, or gets people excited about the idea, that still makes me happy in a way. Um, I still think that the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries from 2000 or 2001 is thus far probably the best representation of the storyline and the themes and characters therein, uh,
Okay, but
of the three.
let me tell you where I come from. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like the biggest fan ever of Star Trek 1.
Mm-hmm.
I love the boringest Star Trek or sci-fi movies.
Sure.
I love them when they're boring. And I think the new ones are really boring in a beautiful way, right?
How do you mean?
It's just that slow burn. So slow. Everything is taking forever. And I love that. I'm so sick and fucking tired of Marvel just pew 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 pew.
Yeah. No. I mean, real. I mean, really, the science fiction that I appreciate the most is the
Mhm.
ones that challenge your mind about philosophy, about life, about what could be, the moral questions. The original series of Star Trek. It wasn't an action fest. It wasn't like Discovery or some of this other
That was a
nonsense that
horror
just
fest.
yeah, it's just flash and clash, and there's no substance there. Or Next Generation, where you have like the drumhead or something where it's like challenging, or like Data's humanity is being tested in Measure
Oh,
of a
Measure
Man.
of a Man.
Measure of a
Yes.
Man, yeah, where
Yeah.
it's like it's not about the laser beams and the explosions. It's about really like taking this platform of a fictional scientific or science fiction um,
Right.
landscape and putting to the test some notions about what we think about the world, about existence and life, and so on. That's not to say there's not a place for science fiction that has action or puts conflict to people versus, alien races, or starts considering those things.
Right.
But
Right.
that's the better science fiction, where it opens up your mind to other possibilities using this fictional setting as a safety net, where you're not having to consider something in real life, but you're sort of like given leave and license to think about it in a fictional context, even though it's completely
Okay, but
applicable and relevant. Yeah.
okay, so but that sounds like you're gonna say that you love the Dune movies right now, but now you're gonna say that you don't.
No, it's not. Okay, so as a representation of the characters in the story as presented in the books, and as a telling of the story in an effective and efficient way. So I'm talking, the new Dune movies don't do as efficient or as satisfying a way of telling the story as the, again, only in comparison to cinematic adaptations, the TV series from Sci-fi. Also, I really, really did not like the way that Denis decided to use Cheney in the latter half of Dune 2. It just, the strength of Cheney in the books is that she understood the gamesmanship of the galactic houses, and that she
Right.
understood her role could not be as wife and lover in the same way as was necessary for the political machinations of the houses for Paul to marry Irulan. And to have
Right.
her like throw a bitch fit, pardon my language, in Dune 2 in this iteration, that to me made the character weaker, not stronger. But that's my main complaint about the new
Okay.
series, or at least Dune 2. And the other thing too, in Dune 1, the thing I didn't like that really threw me off from the beginning was that it opens with Cheney being the narrator of the events going on between the Fremen and the Harkonnen before we even meet Paul, which robs the whole idea of Cheney being a vision in Paul's mind before we know she's a real person, which is a revelation that they kind of steal from you by introducing her as a real person before we even meet Paul. So anyway, there's some creative choices in the movies that, to me, kind of diminish the dynamics of the story. But again, this is just me being sort of maybe a nitpicking nerd.
No, that's fine. Hold on, just real quick here.
Mhm.
Snowdove said, "Hail on Doomed! Great video today, and much love. Thank you very much, buddy."
Are you able
Uh,
to click on those in the chat and bring them up on the screen? I don't know with the free StreamYard thing allows or not.
yeah, maybe I am. Let's see.
I only learned about that like late in the game. There you go. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, because I didn't know that for like the longest time. Like, oh, I can click on those and they bring up on the screen so people see. Yeah.
The irritating thing in this StreamYard is that when I do that, it removes our names. And sure, it's just the two
Yeah.
of us, so it's fine, I guess.
Yeah, it limits
I'm
it to.
undoomed,
Yeah.
you're Scribe Light.
It's
But if
true.
there's a couple of people and then they're like, wait, who are these people again? It's kind of irritating, right?
Yeah, it only allows like one sort of like super overlay until you click off the comment again.
Yeah, so if I click that off,
There you go.
here we
Yep.
are, undoomed,
There we
Scribe
are.
Light.
It's us again.
I think that's a really irritating feature. They should have made that, I don't know, some way. There should be some way to just keep our names up there.
With the extra money they're taking from me this year, I hope that they fix that.
Yeah. Yeah, they as you told me, they've apparently raised the price like
Nearly
hell.
doubled it. Nearly doubled it without really any.
That's
As far as I'm concerned, any reasonable notice. And if you double the price of a subscription, there should have to be a re-agreement to that change at that amount of increase. But I didn't get that, so I got overdrawn.
Yeah, that's some serious inflation.
Yeah. That's a whole other thing. Anyway, so yeah, Dune. I like I say, I always appreciate when those things are brought back to public consciousness. It drives people to go read the books which are really worthwhile still after all this time. So I'm glad
Right.
that people's enthusiasm has brought them back to
Yeah,
the
because
IP.
I was when I was a kid, those books were everywhere in the bookstore, and I was
Hmm.
like, do I really need another like Tatooine book series?
Right, right.
That's kind of how you felt back then. And then I saw Lynch's version of it,
Hmm.
the 1984 Dune. I was like, nope, 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 nope.
Yeah,
I'm
it just
fucking noping out of
I
that one.
I was intimidated by it as a kid because it was so thick and I mean, like I kind of equated it to like Moby Dick or something, where it's like this
Mhm.
really thick, like really deep, and it's like it's beyond my realm of understanding, and maybe it's like Tolkien or something. It just gets really into the nitty gritty of things, and maybe I don't understand the concepts. It felt like a high minded kind of science fiction.
Well, it was just more or less. It was just that when I saw the original Dune, it was just I don't like this. This is
Mm.
this does not. You know what I really like about TNG and DS9 and all that? It's like I want to live there,
Mm. Okay.
right?
Dune
You know
was
what I
not
mean?
an attractive setting to live in. You think?
No, it's like I don't want to fucking live there. I don't like
So
this place.
are you drawn to utopian ideals then?
Yes,
Mm. Okay.
for sure, for sure.
Hmm.
Unless
Okay.
it's like hard sci-fi, I like hard sci-fi, but um, if it's not going to be hard sci-fi, then yeah, probably utopian.
Hmm. Okay. Do you think that
What
such
about
a thing
you?
is possible?
Oh dear.
Yeah.
With human beings, maybe not.
See, I'm always drawn to science fiction that challenges, that presents some kind of mystery or difficulty
Mm,
or real like like when you asked me to come on, I was trying to think like what's some of the science fiction that really stood out to me when I was growing up, and one of the first things that came up to my mind is a series of books called they're technically called the River World series. Have you ever heard of River World?
not that I can recall.
Okay, it's a series of books by a guy named Philip Jose Farmer,
Hmm.
and the gist is that all of a sudden, all of a sudden, every living being that has ever existed on Earth is suddenly resurrected on an alien
Okay.
planet along an endless river. So you, me, Thomas Edison, Einstein, uh, Amelia Earhart, everybody who's ever existed is suddenly resurrected full form on this river.
Right.
And they don't know why they're there. They don't know how they got there. But you have all these people from all these different eras, and all of a sudden they have to start like trying to survive and make sense of the world and everything else. And slowly they start to create a quasi civilization while they're trying to solve the problem and like what's going on and why are we here. And every time somebody dies, they get resurrected again, but somewhere randomly down the endless river away from everything that they may have built or come to know. And it's just like this it's not hard science fiction because it doesn't really deal with like technical stuff so much, but it's it's set in the
Hmm.
future, so to speak, and everything else. And it really puts to the task. He brings together all these different characters from these different eras and philosophies. You've got Hitler talking to Van Gogh and all this other stuff, and it really starts putting my mind at the test of like, well, what would you do if suddenly you had to survive with someone from a completely different time period or someone that you knew because you were living in a future that they never knew what kind of person they were, and that kind of stuff, that stuff of challenging the mind and the imagination of like what if um
Right.
always makes me
But
more
did
interested.
you say Hitler?
Well, I mean, well, the series says, and I think this is a tagline of the book. It's like, this is the story that stars everyone who's ever lived, including you. So you can imagine yourself somewhere in this world. So yeah, every living person that's ever existed on Earth at any particular point in
Hmm.
time is suddenly resurrected. So yeah, so Hitler could be there, and Winston Churchill, and anybody
I
else.
thought you said actually Hitler.
I think he is in there somewhere. It's been a long time since I've read the book, so I think he could actually. But actually, Hitler, yeah, I think he's a character in there
Yeah.
somewhere. Him and Mark Twain are like having a battle or something.
Oh, yeah. Whenever I hear that, I'm thinking about that Star Trek TNG episode with
Oh,
Mark
Time
Twain.
Zero.
Times Arrow, exactly.
Yeah. Why the hell? See, I'm not even that much of a hardcore Star Trek fan, but good gravy, I apparently know more than I thought I did.
Yeah, and it's not even that great of an episode or two episodes. It's like a
No, they
two-parter.
really couldn't figure out what to do with Guinan. Like they suggested that there was, and people have like, I guess this has maybe been fleshed out in novels or something, but like Guinan was and her
I
race
don't
of,
care
of
about
creatures.
novels. Fuck novels. Like,
Well, I don't care about novels or
it,
Star Trek. For Star Wars, I cared a lot about the novels, and then Disney nixed them all, the jerkwads. That's a whole other
yeah,
thing.
so I was correct. You shouldn't care about novels.
Yeah, well, I still did. I still have my favorite novels.
Damn
But
it.
yeah, so yeah, River World. But the other one I was thinking of when you asked is a series called I guess it was a trilogy at the time. It was called the Tripod Trilogy. It was written back in the 70s. God, what was the
Is that
author's name?
that British thing?
Yeah, it was a British thing. It always felt like it was a continuation of what if the War of the Worlds aliens won kind of thing. And it was
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah,
it,
yeah.
it was
Wasn't
very
there a TV
dystopian.
series? It was there a TV series?
Yes, they made a TV series based on I think either the first and or the second novels.
Hmm.
And I read them as a kid, and it was probably the first story that I ever read that was sort of like a post-apocalyptic story when I was young. And so yeah, the tripods and their mysterious owners, masters, or whatever were controlling them, and all the human population had been sort of cowed with these implants they had in their heads that kept them docile and all this. And you had this small band of rebels who are trying to oppose them and everything. And as a little kid, it was just a revelation to me because I never read anything like it before, and I was really into sci-fi and monsters and uh, yeah, the War of the Worlds and things like that really fascinated me. But
Right, right.
yeah, I don't think they get talked about much anymore. They're probably very antiquated, I suppose. But
I mean, they've made remakes of everything else on the planet, but I don't think they've ever made a remake of that. Because I
uh,
remember that from my childhood as well.
yeah, the closest we got, I suppose, spiritually speaking, at least, was the War of the Worlds Spielberg movie with Tom Cruise way back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
But that wasn't so
yeah,
good.
that wasn't so good. Yeah.
No, it wasn't horrible, but
Eh,
wasn't so good.
eh. Yeah, it wasn't. I always wanted like Tim Burton's Mars Attacks. I was always kind of disappointed by because I really wanted a Mars Attacks that stuck to the original trading cards that was more the horrors of war kind of thing rather than being a
Mhm,
comedy. But
mhm,
that was the thing about like talking about like using sci-fi to explore real world things. When those cards came out, it was I think either just after the Korean War and or just before or during the Vietnam War, and you could use those aliens as the placeholders for whatever enemy and the horrors and atrocities of war, but it was coming from like aliens or something, so you could sort of like detach yourself from reality and think about that a little bit without having to get caught up in real world politics or something.
right, right. So if I could ask, do you have a favorite Star Trek episode?
Oh, good gravy! A favorite Star Trek episode. Um, Well, I watched most TNG when I was growing up. I started watching that with my dad back in '87 when it first came out. That was my first real exposure to Star Trek. Because at that point, I hadn't really seen the reruns of the original series. So most of my fondest Star Trek memories come from TNG.
Right.
And gosh, which one do I like the most? I always had an affinity for Barclay. The episodes were Barclay, especially the one where he becomes like a super genius because of the aliens that kind of like help out his brain.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Yeah.
I was always that awkward kid, who didn't have the social skills, thought I probably could exceed my own limits if I really tried, but kind of felt kind of hesitant about putting myself out there, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so Barclay, played by Howling Mad Murdoch, whose real name I suddenly forget for Dwight Schultz. Pardon me, Dwight Schultz.
White Schultz.
And,
Right.
yeah, Dwight Schultz. And so yeah, him like wanting to impress Deanna Troi and having all of these sort of like pent up aspirations for himself that he just couldn't get out. I always empathize with. So the episode where they encounter that alien ship and it makes Barclay a super genius, and he sort of overcomes his own sense of limitation.
Right.
And he
uploads half of his brain into the
right,
computer and all that.
Yeah. I mean, at least for that first little period, and I've always kind of empathized with stories like that where someone is suddenly either allowing themselves or being allowed to be more than they expect of themselves. So like the Barclay episode, that movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper from several years ago, it's kind of like that. But yeah, I guess the first one that comes to mind, there's a whole lot of episodes that I like, but I guess the first one that came to my mind was the that one Barclay episode kind of always stuck with me.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, if I were to say mine would be a very obvious episode, obviously, and that's the um, don't remember. Yes, I remember. In the pale moonlight, and it's such an obvious episode that I don't even know if I have to explain it. Or
You might have to remind me that the title does not.
oh,
Remind me of the
okay,
synopsis.
it's the DS9 episode where Cisco tricks the entire Romulan Empire into going to war with the Dominion.
Oh yes. Oh, you want to say when I start Star Trek? Yeah, DS9 feels like such a just a complete departure from Star Trek mainline because of its darkness, because of its grittiness, because of its moral ambiguity. I almost don't often think of it when I first think of Star Trek, and that's not to diminish it at all. But yeah, no, where he's like talking to the computer and he's
Exactly.
confessing. Yeah, he's confessing his effective war crime and then deleting the law. Yeah, oh man, yeah, that is a good one. That's a good one.
That's such a good episode, and like you say, it's the end of the episode. It's just like computer, delete that entire log, and it just goes to black. And
Because
that's the end of the episode.
you never see that kind of. I mean, prior to DS9, you never really saw that kind of dystopian, fog of war, moral ambiguity. And it was
Right.
it was a really weird thing to introduce into the Star Trek universe, but it makes perfect sense given the circumstance, and they set it up so well. DS9 is so good.
And
It took a season or two to get there, but yeah.
I don't think it detracted at all.
No, because it was organic. See, it didn't come out of nowhere. There's so much buildup in the Dominion War up to that point, and all
Well,
the
it's
other
not just
politics
that.
going on.
It's not just that. It's also the fact that this stuff needed to be explained.
Yes.
Right? There's so much fucking in TNG and everything. Everything is always great. There's never any bad things, and like, holy fuck, you need to explain some bad stuff at some point.
Well, most of the time in both the original series and especially in TNG, if ever there was a bad element that came in, it was always some, Starfleet admiral that came in as the monster of the week to introduce it or something. Whereas like the forces of the events happening around these characters can't not affect them over time. The Star Trek TNG characters that were in that era, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, stayed
No, but yeah,
relatively static.
for the most part, it was just a crazy admiral or something
Yes,
that could not really affect them. You knew it was going to be resolved within the episode.
right. But Deep Space Nine was far more long-term story arcs. I mean, it was episodic in a way, but the characters evolved, the situation evolved. It was much
I
more
I I, th-
dynamic.
I think it struck a pretty good deal there with half episodic, and
Hmm.
half um, what do you call it? Like,
Oh, I long-term arc or something, maybe.
I
Yeah.
guess long term arc. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's every arc. The thing is, every episode is rewatchable. That's
Yes.
really what I miss.
Hmm.
That's what I want. I want to be able to go back and watch every episode, and it has a beginning and an end. And it still is a part of a greater arc. I think
Yeah.
that's brilliant. I think that's
The
brilliant.
the problem with a lot of the modern streaming series is that they think of the entire season as one arc, and
Yes.
each episode is a piece, but it's not a satisfying piece. It doesn't
No.
have really a beginning or an end. It's just one more lead into the next thing, another cliffhanger or
It's
something.
yeah, it's just a little piece of a movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's an 8 hour
And
long
you
movie.
and you don't want to watch an 8 hour long movie.
No,
That's
it
it's
doesn't. It
not the
doesn't keep
way
your
movies
interest.
work.
Yeah,
No,
they're
that's
built
not
to
the
be
way.
binged, and that's not. That doesn't make for memorable stories. It doesn't allow for like those little nugget stories like we're talking about, like Time Zero or Measure of a Man or The Drumhead or any of these other things that we could name one off as like, wow, that was a really great story in and of itself.
Yeah.
I'm hard pressed to think of a bingeable streaming series where I could say the whole thing was worth watching.
No, I mean, you can't. And I've watched just to keep up, and because I don't like to criticize stuff that I haven't seen. So I
Sure.
have seen Picard. I
Oh, I'm
have
sorry.
seen, yeah, I have seen Strange New Worlds. I've seen
Mm.
them all. Um, and it's third season Picard was fine. I enjoyed that. But that was just like a long 8 hour movie
Yeah.
that seemed like, okay, now we're saying goodbye to Picard. This is like a second last episode of TNG.
Did you see the Unification little short that came out the other day or last week?
Yes, you mean the one with Kirk?
Yes.
Yes.
What'd you think of
I'm
that?
not sure what that was for. Someone sent it to me, and I was like, "Oh, this is really nice." Do you know what it was for?
So there's a channel slash organization out there called the Roddenberry Archive,
Hmm.
and they've been doing a whole bunch of work in cataloging everything about Star Trek, from concept art to old blueprints to story, like everything and its brother. And they've been doing these little snippet short films or teasers for the last couple of years, showing off some amazing prosthetic and makeup work, also some de-aging and other things to try
Right.
to fill in some gaps or resolve some things about the Star Trek storylines. And this one was sort of it felt like the culmination of a lot of things they put together previously. And I just as a casual Star Trek fan, I didn't get every reference or little Easter egg in that short, but I watched a video that broke it down, and it effectively ties together nearly all of the major Star Trek series in a way, either with character mentions or things referring to novelizations or deleted scenes or things from other movies, to try to give a sort of a resolution not only to Kirk's arc but also the friendship between Kirk and Spock. And
Right.
I mean it. Save for a couple of uncanny valley brief moments in it, I was blown away by it. I was just like, and there's no dialogue except for some, narration sound bites here and there. Yeah, Sam Witwer was the body double for Kirk in that,
Yeah.
who's a major Star Wars and now I guess Star Trek figure. And yeah, I got emotional. Even though I'm not as much a hardcore fan as some friends of mine, I understood enough and had seen enough of the relationship between Kirk and Spock, and also knew a little bit about the falling out that Shatner and Nimoy had in their later years. That to see that sort of come together at the end was kind of nice.
I thought that was earlier in their years, though.
I I might be wrong, and someone in the chat who knows better can correct me. But I was under the impression that when it came down to the last hours, let's say, of Leonard Nimoy's life, that he and Shatner were not on good terms for some reason, or had drifted from one another. I might be wrong. I'm happy to be corrected on that.
I'm not going to say you're wrong. I just thought that they had resolved that because they made all these different documentaries together,
Yeah.
and they seemed like they were best friends.
It might have been the fact that as far as the storyline goes, Kirk died alone on a planet with Captain Picard and not Spock there with him. So maybe that felt a bit disconnected or unresolved. I think that was probably part of it too. But
Well, that was a stupid plot point.
yeah,
That's
Generations, man.
just always irritated me.
The odd-numbered Star Trek movies, right?
Yeah.
It's always the odd-numbered ones that are the weakest, generally speaking. The Star Trek II, Wrath for Khan, and then Voyage Home, and then Undiscovered Country, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the less we say about Star Trek 5, I guess that's...
Yeah, let's not. Well, I mean, The Search for God was okay. Search for God was okay. There were some moments.
Here's my controversial opinion about this. I love Star Trek 5 more than Insurrection.
I would not disagree with you on that one at all.
Yeah. I hate the Insurrection.
Insurrection was like it was like an extended worst episode of the TNG series.
But it was such a bad episode.
It was a bad episode.
I've heard that argument. Yeah, it's just like an episode of TNG. But it was a fucking bad one.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Bad.
It wasn't as bad as, oh God, I suddenly forget the name of it. It was like a first season episode in TNG where it was as stereotypically racist African. Code of Honor. I think it was a Code of Honor. Somebody in the chat will have to remind me.
Yes.
Yeah, Code of Honor. Oh God, it's so bad. It's so cringe to watch now.
Did you know that writer? First of all, did you know that writer is a woman?
I did not know, but sure, okay.
And did you know that woman went on to write almost an exact same episode that is exactly as bad for Stargate SG-1?
I could believe it. Now, I have to confess, save for maybe like one or two, I've never really watched Stargate. I know the movie I saw like gangbusters when I was a kid, but I never watched the TV series, so I have to turn in my nerd card for that one.
It doesn't matter. But for me, Stargate is actually a better series than Star Trek.
Okay.
But if you haven't seen it, that's fine. However, they have an episode that is almost exactly like Code of Honor, and it's written by the same
one-trick
writer.
pony, apparently.
It's written by the same girl. And
oh man!
Like, what are you doing? What the fuck? And how did you get the job? Right?
Well, we don't talk about like people failing upwards in Hollywood. I mean, we could go on for hours. Oh man.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Holy fuck.
Yeah, it's all about who you know or whose relative you are, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or what dirt you have on somebody else that you can leverage for a job.
Maybe that's it. I mean, I can't understand it.
What's your first memory of science fiction as a concept, like as a kid? Like, what's the
Oh,
first thing
that's
you
that's
remember?
that's Star Trek, the TOS.
Star Trek TOS.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
my
my parents didn't let me see like kids shows. I only got to see TOS.
my first real memory of science fiction
Hmm.
was there was a I can't remember how young I was very young. I must have been elementary school. It was very like first or something grade, and we were being given a tour of a museum or something, and there was this mock-up of what people in 1960s territory thought our city was going to look like by the 1980s. And there was like monorails and people with jetpacks and all this other stuff. And I remember standing there as a look. I to this day, and I still complain in a way about this. I was like, well, where's my jetpack? Well, I'm
Right.
in the 1980s. Where's my jetpack? Where's my moon
Where's
base?
your
Where
flying
are these
car?
things? I was
Flying car.
promised these things. Yeah, where are they now? Why are we so far behind? What I mean, they thought we were supposed to have like flying cars by 1980. Like where am I? It's 1986. Where's my jetpack? And so I always felt disappointed by people's imaginations not meeting reality by the time. Um, but that also
Yeah.
like it made me really appreciate the power of someone's imagination to try to project into the future. And so when I read things like John Carter of Mars,
Mhm.
um, when scientific knowledge was far far more restricted then than it is now, obviously, and someone trying to imagine what's life like on Mars or what could it be, and it's almost you read those stories now and they're practically like fantasy stories,
Yeah.
but you try to
Well, they
take a
are.
well, I mean, they are fantasy stories, but you try to set yourself back in that era when their
Hmm.
knowledge of the universe and science and everything else was far more limited than it is now. You try to think, well, I mean, that's the best that they could do with the information that they had, and it's really kind of inspiring in a way that someone could project their thoughts as to what could be beyond the limitation of their day and come up with something so amazing, even if it seems kind of
Right.
antiquated or kind of cheesy now.
Right.
I appreciate that kind of imagination.
Have you ever read an author called Max Berry?
I can't say that I have, no.
Um, Put it on your list. Max Berry has written one of my favorite novels called Jennifer Government.
Now that wait, that title, I know that title.
Okay.
Yeah, that was that in the 90s?
I think so, probably.
Yeah, no,
Something like that.
I know that title. I
Late
never read the
90s,
book.
early 2000s,
Yeah,
something
okay.
like that. Amazing satirical sci-fi kind of thing, right? It's sci-fi, but it's also satirical. Where
2003 dystopian novel. Yeah, okay, I saw this book at the bookstore. That's why the cover of it
Mhm,
immediately brings me back. Yeah, okay. I recognize it. I never read it though. I apologize for that.
you should.
Apparently
And
so.
all you
Okay.
guys in the chat, read this story or this book or novel. Holy shit, that's an amazing book. It's it's so satirical, like it's dripping with satire.
There's yeah, this is around the so I got have you ever heard of a speaking of authors, have you ever heard of an author named Harry Turtledove?
Can't place it.
So he is a alternate history aficionado, let's say for the most part. He wrote a book called The Guns of the South,
Okay.
which postulated what if the South in the Civil War of America were handed AK-47s. What would happen then?
Okay.
And he comes up with a sci-fi reason to do this, but the sci-fi element is only a sort of delivery mechanism for an analysis of the conditions of the Civil War, the cultures clashing at the time, what the politics would be around the South having an advantage in the war. I mean, it's really some of the classic
But
use of.
are they saying that they didn't just get the guns; they got unlimited ammo, or?
Well, that's part of the story too, is to like where the guns came from and how they, continue to use them and so on. There's a whole. I don't want to give it away for anybody who wants to, because it's an amazing book. It's a sort of a one-shot kind of alternate history thing, but it's some of the best sci-fi in that it takes something in the real world and then gives it just a little bit of a twist using a science fiction element to make you question and also re-examine what's going on. And of course, it's all from the perspective of one author. So Harry Turtledove was a professor of Byzantine history. So he was a history buff and everything else. And so he wrote these books sort of like playing off of, well, what if the South had an advantage in the Civil War? He did another series called World War, where he said, what if aliens invaded in the middle of World War II and suddenly all these competing nations had a common enemy they had to suddenly come together?
I saw that Enterprise episode.
Yeah, and it's well, the books came before then, so but that's
I was just making a quip.
I know, yeah. But boy, Enterprise, man, what it's such potential, and it completely fell off the cliff. Like by season 3 or whatever, it really started to cook with the invading force or whatever in the galaxy, and then it just kind of they ran out of money and audience. But anyway, that was a shame.
Yeah, my heart just dropped when I saw that they were landing in Nazi Germany.
Yeah, the time travel stuff. It just doesn't.
Oh my god!
It's such a cheap. I mean, it was interesting in the original series. It was a diversion. I'm always kind of iffy about any kind of time travel shenanigans.
I'm not against time travel at all. It's just that at that point, I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
That's what I call a filler episode in so many other shows and other things.
Yeah.
I like speculation on what ifs, like the series Sliders back in the 90s on Fox, where it was like they go to a different reality where the Nazis won World War II. Sorry.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, dude, Sliders was. The first season of Sliders was great. This was Jerry O'Connell and John Rhys Davies before he became Gimli, and basically it was this college, high school student or whatever. He happens to invent a device that allows you to create a wormhole between various multiple dimensions of Earth. Mm-hmm. And so he and his friends accidentally, of course, get sucked into a different alternate Earth where, and each episode was a new version of like.
So we're talking Rhys Davies from Indiana Jones, right?
Yes. And this was on Fox back in the mid to late 90s, I think it was, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And so you had a world where like, Nazi Germany won World War II. You have a world where penicillin was never developed. You have a world where
it's a mini The Man in the High Tower.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, but it doesn't focus just on that. Each episode was a different world with a different twist, as something different happened in history. Or otherwise. Yeah, Man in the High Castle, yeah. And
High
so,
Castle.
High
Castle. Right.
And the first season was really good, and then things kind of went sideways and stuff. But yeah, I like that speculative, like the what if stuff. That's why I was like that series.
I haven't seen that one.
Dude, it's great. I mean, like I say, definitely recommend the first season for all. The really funny one was where they end up on a planet, or it's a planet. They end up on an Earth where they're walking around and they see a TV advertise or a TV broadcast
Mhm.
that shows, and now a message from the President of the United States. And then it cuts to a impersonator of Hillary Clinton and says, "I'm now speaking to you from the White House." And people, they're like, "What?" And one of the funniest ones is where they show back up on Earth and they look at the newspaper and it says, "Oh, wait a second. It's like, are we back?" Because their whole thing is trying to get back home. They're trying to get back to their own Earth, and they keep jumping because they don't have any control over what Earth they jump to. And so they jump to an Earth where they look at a newspaper, and it says, "Yeah, the Los Angeles Rams just won blah blah blah." And they're like, "Oh, that can't be right." And it says, "Wait, OJ Simpson is on trial for murder. This can't be the real Earth." And they jump through the portal, like, "Oh no!" Like what? Because yeah, everything changed within like a season or something. It was that was funny. That was funny.
I just saw Bookworm Addict in the chat. Said hi to both of us. So
Oh hey, Bookworm,
hi.
how's it going?
Yeah,
Yeah, hey Blakester, Mike Savage. Who else do I see here from Mr. Tickle Trunk? Good evening, Chauncey Stewart. Your internet's favorite lunatic. Good evening, guys.
Shark Dentures. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, lots of people saying hi. Um, Sorry we can't get through you all, but thank you very much for showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. Okay, so like what is your first memory of sci-fi?
Well, aside from the "this is what our city should be looking like in 1980s," uh,
Like how old were you?
well, when I
Because
saw that,
I think I'm kind of abnormal myself. That's why I'm asking.
I had to have been about 6 or 7 years old because this was I remember this was a field trip we went on in first grade.
Hmm.
And I was born in 79 and that was 86. So I had to be like about 7 years old.
Right.
And that's the first time that I sort of like have a memory of something science fictiony. But after that, it was, I mean, I guess technically Ghostbusters was sort of science fiction after a fashion. That was
Kind
that
of.
that was the
I
first
would.
that was the first movie my mother was having a baby shower at our house and my dad had to take me and my sister away from the house while the baby shower was going on, and for some reason he decided to take my sister was like 4 at the time and
Right.
I was 5 and he took us to Ghostbusters and it scared the shit out of us, like the librarian at the beginning and everything else. It was so overwhelming to our senses. She and I just love that movie to death ever since then. But aside from that, yeah, like I can't avoid Star Wars because really Star Wars, as far as like spaceships and laser guns and that kind of stuff,
Right.
was really my first overall science fiction exposure as a kid. Otherwise. And I've been a fan ever
Right.
since up until Disney bought him. That's a whole other story.
Right. Okay,
Mhm.
real quick. I have a super chat here from Lee Cranmer.
Hey,
$5 says, I need to hear "Hey Moron, fucking moron" for nostalgia. All right, here's the thing. When I um recorded that for the original videos that I did, I had
yeah.
a different microphone. So I don't know if it's going to sound the same, but I'm going to give it to you all the same because I'm a good sport. Hey, moron! Fucking moron! And, you know, I'm sure that didn't sound like it did in the movies.
Man, that takes me back. I mean, I got to say, just as an aside, it is so. I'm such a fanboy because I was watching your stuff long before I decided to do YouTube on my own back in
Mhm.
the Gamergate days and everything, and sort of the rise of SJW stuff and everything. And to be on here talking to you right now, it's so bizarre, and I'm so grateful. I'm so
No,
thankful.
well, I mean, you know that's just the way it is with the internet, and I appreciate it, exactly what you're saying because I've been in the exact same situation. Uh, I've been suddenly thrust into live streams where there was a director that I've always admired.
Yeah.
It's like that's just the beauty of the internet. Somehow, somewhere, at some point, you could just be like, boom, there you are with that guy that you admired.
Yeah.
And and just to make it clear, like now we're friends. So I don't want to have this sort of like, oh my God, there's this
Oh,
guy
yeah. The hero
who's
worship
just
part of it is kind of hard to avoid, but I always think of it like, because I still have, and I mean, you and I think are probably of the same generation, where we have a memory of a world where you couldn't in any way meaningfully communicate with your heroes on television. It's like
exactly.
I always bring up Robert Stack. I always bring up, like, I used to watch Robert Stack on Unsolved Mysteries all the time, but
Right.
never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I ever get to talk to Robert Stack, communicate with Robert Stack. And now, ever since coming on YouTube and elsewise, I've communicated. Like, I remember on, I think it was Midnight's Edge or something, they had on Chuck Dixon. Chuck Dixon, amazing comic book writer and just author in general. And I had the opportunity through a super chat to say, I want to thank you, Chuck Dixon, so much for writing Punisher number 45. It's my favorite Punisher comic book ever written. It is the best Punisher story ever told. Thank you so much. And he said, oh yeah, that was the first one I ever wrote. And I was like, what? I had no idea. I was like, wait. The first Punisher story you ever wrote is the best Punisher story ever told. You knocked it out of the park on them. I love you even more now than I did a second ago. It's just,
Right.
it's so great. And the little things like that. I love the internet for that. And so, yeah, anyway, not
Okay.
to gush too much, but yeah.
Yeah, but hold on just a second, because I have a good continuation to this. But first of all, I have another super chat from Keeverdam, who says,
Oh, Keeverdam.
Hi, Undoomed and Scribe." Hi, hi there, Keeverdam, and he says,
Yeah,
"Hi to you,
Keeverdam is
Scribe."
my chat's den mother. She's a longtime viewer of mine. And
Yeah, yeah.
yep, she's nice to see you, Keeverdam. Hope you're having a good evening.
Is she like your moderator or?
Yeah, she's one of my moderators. She always dutifully provides the links to various fundraisers for my viewers and or other things, and kind of supplements me in the little things that I need to have done before the streams start. So,
Right.
yeah, it's hi, Keeverdam.
That's awesome. Call me. I might need the same services.
Yeah, it always helps to have, like, with everything else going on in real life elsewise, when you're trying to put a show together and like somebody takes care of that one little thing that you don't have to think about too much and completely on a voluntary basis. And I can't thank her enough, and I really appreciate it.
Yes, because that's Stargazer Nuts. You know her, right?
Yep, Stargazer Nuts. Yep.
Yeah.
Or Knights. And not Knights as it's correctly pronounced, but between myself and Ranting Monkey and everybody, we call it Nuts.
Really?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's me. Maybe it's not Monkey so much, but it should be Stargazer Knights, but we always kind of
That makes sense.
Nuts.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. I mean, she's
Yeah.
never corrected me. Damn it. She's so nice. She's so nice.
I know.
So she probably didn't want to bother me about that if I ever said that. Anyway, yeah, she's I don't think she's in the chat right now, but she's a moderator, and she's just a great person. Anyway, I forgot what I was going to say. I had a great thought lined up, but then we got into all this stuff. We're talking about, what were we talking about?
We're talking about, well, I mean, like our first memories of sci-fi. I was talking about Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. So like I said before, my absolute first memories of sci-fi is Star Trek, the original series. That's what I was allowed to watch when I was a kid. I wasn't allowed to watch any fucking uh, kids shows or what was that thing with all hmm what was that called?
Hmm.
The Henson shit. Oh, the Muppets.
Uh,
Right.
the Muppets. You mean
Wasn't
like
al- was
Pigs in
wasn't allowed.
Space?
No, no, wasn't allowed to watch the Muppets. All those
Mm-hmm.
kid shows. Sesame Streets. No, what I was allowed to watch was Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
My parents thought that Sesame Street was bullshit.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, I wasn't allowed to watch that. That was
Oh
the
man,
stuff that
Sesame Street and
you
Mister
shouldn't watch that.
Rogers. Mister Rogers and Sesame Street were like my go-to, or Fraggle Rock, I suppose. Maybe might be another one.
Yeah, no, I wasn't allowed to watch that because that was
Hmm.
apparently bullshit.
Hmm.
To, as far as my parents were concerned. Um, so original Star Trek, we always had that on every fucking rerun.
Wow. Now, who's your favorite? Right, it's kind of a side thing. Who's the best captain, or I guess lead? Because Cisco eventually became a captain as a commander. But I mean, who's the best captain?
Oh, it is Cisco for sure.
Okay. All right. You like the gritty edge part. Pardon me, I'm getting messages on my phone here.
I
Um.
would I would say so. I mean, I love them all. I mean, there's nothing like an original movie. Like
Mm-hmm.
the original movies are so good. They're orgasmically good, right?
Yeah. Well, at least of the original series movies.
Yes, yes. I
The
mean,
the TNG ones
Captain,
are
Captain Kirk movies.
yeah, Captain Kirk movies. I
Uh,
always I always liked.
I'm not
Hmm.
a huge fan of the TNG movies. They're like,
Jesus.
okay, fine.
Yeah, the TNG movies I couldn't really, for the most part. I mean, there's I'm trying to think. Like, I mean, I liked. I never. I guess my biggest problem with the TNG movies is that they turned Picard into an action hero, and he was never an action. That's what I was appreciating about
Yeah.
Picard is that he was so cerebral, that he was so
Yes.
morally, uh, stalwart in how he approached things. But when he was challenged, you could see both sides of his struggle when it came down to
Right.
making a decision about something. And that's what I always appreciate about Picard. He was a far more philosophical captain than Kirk. Kirk was a more swashbuckle sort of, a sly grin kind of guy, which I do appreciate. But I think Picard always in episodes pushed me to
I don't think
think
he
more.
was that much of a swashbuckler, though. But um,
Eh,
it's a common perception. But Picard certainly wasn't it. Like, he was not a swashbuckler.
No, Picard was not, and so when they put him in those movies, you see, if they'd established Picard as something of a man of action in the TNG series, then the way they portrayed him in the movies would have been easier to swallow. But
Sure.
when you have him swinging from pipes and shooting at the Borg and going, like, no, no,
This
that's not how.
far, no further.
Yeah, that's how the line must be drawn here. I
Yeah.
always love that. And I love that first comment. The line must be drawn here. I'd never heard the word here pronounced that way before. I
Yeah.
stuck here.
Yeah.
Can I bother
Yes.
you to take a quick break? I need to walk away just for a moment.
Of
I need
course.
to,
Of
and
course.
I'll be back momentarily. So I'll mute myself for a second. And apologies, everybody. I just got to step away for a second.
That that happens, man. Anyway, how you doing, Chet? Let's see what are you thinking here? What are your thoughts? So someone has to take a piss. Yes. Yes, things like that happen even in sci-fi. Even in sci-fi, people have to take a piss. That is what happens. Okay. They made Picard look weak. Uh, he surrendered the Enterprise. Uh, what was that? He surrendered in the first episode of. Wait, hold on. Everything's scrolling. They made Picard look weak. He surrendered the Enterprise the first episode of STNG. Okay. What do you mean STNG? All right. Carol Soldier says, what were your thoughts on Babylon 5? Oh, I love Babylon 5. I I think that was an amazing, except for one point. Uh, every time they try to make humor, I was like, no, don't. Stay away. Please don't. Please don't make humor. But every time they made drama or just stories or intrigue or that was awesome. Just don't make jokes because I don't know what it was about JMS. I think that's his name, right? JMS. Um, he was not good with humor. I remember, um, what's his Garibaldi standing in the elevator, talking to Lita. Maybe I think it was. They're trying to read each other's mind, and oh my god, I got so cringed out. Jesus Christ. Anyway, let's see. What else do we got in the chat here? Thoughts. TNG loved it when I was young. Now it's too common.
Apologies. I had a little biological break there for a moment. Apologies for that.
I'm sure everyone realized. No worries. I was talking to Tui. Tui. Here we go. Tui said that loved TNG when he was young, and now it's too commie. And I would say that I don't think that's entirely correct. Um, I think that you can't really define the economic system of Star Trek.
Yeah.
They always, all leftists always love to come in and like, oh my god, Star Trek is a commie system. It always was. No, come on now. There's never
No.
been any real definition. At least commies have a real definition of what the
Well,
fuck is
yeah,
going on.
Roddenberry hand waved over that stuff because,
Yeah,
as far
it's
as
the hand waving is so huge that it
yeah,
waves
it was
over.
just meant to get past that stuff in order to tell better stories on a sort of a moralistic exploration level than anything else. It wasn't until
Yeah.
DS9 that we really started hearing about economy again.
Yeah. And I'm not a big fan of all those kind of like commie episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, all right, do whatever you want. But
I like the episodes that took a step back to talk about moral issues or issues of the day without being too on the nose. I mean, I guess except
I
for
mean,
like when
the thing is, like, here's the thing. if you want to make an episode like that and you actually have a good point,
Yeah.
then I will, no matter how much you think I'm a right winger, I'll be like, fuck yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you make, you can talk about left wing politics, but then if you're talking about workers' rights and all that stuff, I'd be like, huh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I'm with you.
As long as it's and this is the thing that Star Trek always did so well, is that it at least in some way, shape, or form attempted to address both sides of the perspective on a subject, even if it
Oh,
eventually had to.
for sure,
Yeah,
for
even if
sure.
it eventually came down on one side versus the other, it at least gave the other side a relatively fair hearing and didn't come across as preachy per se. But even if you had to sort of pick the lesser of two evils, you kind of understood where the characters were coming from by the end of the episode.
Sure, but even if you went to TNG,
Mm-hmm.
often or most often, I would say, they did not come down on either side. They were so sure that they
Mm-hmm.
had the right point that they just presented one side and the other. And they're like, yeah, people will figure it out. We don't have to shove it down their throat.
Right. Yeah.
They
Or
didn't even,
it was
they were so sure they were right that they said like, no, we don't have to shove it down their throat. And I miss that so much.
mm.
Please come back.
Well,
Like,
I mean, is that even possible anymore? At least with current Hollywood, probably not.
well, not right now, obviously, and but that is why Star Trek fails now, because
Mm-hmm.
they're all they're all like, yeah, I'll shove it down the throat, open that
Well,
throat, bend that throat, and shove it down.
yeah, there's only one way to look at it, and ours is the right way, and there's no reason to think about it from two different sides. Even if we come to a conclusion at the end, there's only
Can
one
you
way to go.
imagine the measure of a man today? It would
Oh
just be
God.
one guy bashing the face in of the other guy, and he would just fucking bash it in till that guy said like, oh, I surrender, Data's the best, bye.
Yeah, the Daystrom, that was his name, the Daystrom guy. The guy was arguing
Yeah,
that the Data was just a machine and property of Starfleet and so on. Yeah, he would have nothing to say, and Picard would just be like, "You're a racist, you're an ableist, you're this, that, and the other, and this is terrible, and there is no question. Data is this. There's no ambiguity whatsoever. It's just this." I'm like, oh, okay, and
yeah.
that'd be the episode. I'm like, okay.
And that's what make that's really what made Star Trek beautiful. Why do you think there's so many right wingers that are so in love with Star Trek?
I mean, it
Because,
is,
and I'll
yeah.
tell you,
Hmm.
because they always left both options open, and they didn't try to shove anything down your throat. And then when you looked at it, you probably were going to find your way down to the leftist side by yourself, right?
Yeah, rarely was it the case that when it came to some kind of like moral quandary that they vilified the other side. They
No, they
might have
didn't.
come to a they might have come to a conclusion on one side or the other on the balance of a sort of principled or moral basis, but it's not like the guy who was opposing Data being considered a life form was then suddenly, oh, now you have to be thrown in prison and can never be talked about again or anything else. It just,
No.
and even Data kind of looked at him at the end and said sort of like, no, I understand where you're coming from, but this is just the way it is. Civil discourse. That's what Star Trek promoted over anything else. Even if there was an eventual conclusion or a side to come down on, at least for the most part, except in the most sort of situations of war or inhumanity or something,
Right.
civil discourse was the theme of the day.
Right. And I
Because it
just
was about
remember,
exploration. It was about not only exploring in the science fiction sense, like a new planet or new civilization, but also exploring the different areas of our own opinions and our own perspectives on basic moral values and quandaries, and understanding that there are two sides. One
Oh,
side is
yeah,
inevitably going to
exactly.
win over the other, but each one should
Exactly.
be evaluated on its own merits. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. When I was a kid, when I was watching Star Trek, that's exactly what I got from it. That there was always two sides to the story,
Mm-hmm.
and as far as I remember from all these episodes was that they were almost as good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, okay, maybe they wanted you to land on that one, but you if you landed on the other one, that was still understandable.
Right. There was an empathy there for your brother in opposition.
Yes,
Even if you disagreed, at least there was some you get some sympathy, some compassion.
yes,
And
yes.
now there's no compassion. You're either on one side or the other. Like the in the
I
most
mean,
recent memory.
it is like politics. Like you're either with us or against us.
Well, but yeah,
I'm st-
but this tribalist politics feels a lot more of the modern day. It feels a lot more intense than it did in the past. And maybe I'm just sort of like rose-colored glasses looking in the past or something.
Mhm.
But like the most inhumane period of time that I've lived through, which is kind of weird to say, but watching people during the pandemic, and it didn't matter what side of the aisle you were on the subject, wishing for the deaths of their opponents on the question of whether or not you should get a medical procedure done. Whether you were
Yeah,
wishing, oh, this person died, did they get the injection or didn't they? There was death cults on both sides of the aisle on this, and it just made me absolutely lose my shit over those 2 years. So it's like, how have we reached this point? How can you be
yeah,
so cruel and heartless that somebody's lost their life or gotten sick or something, and your only question is whether or not the cause of their ill fate is on yours or the other side's opinion on something? It's like, how insane. Anyway,
yeah.
sorry, that's a little bit of a tangent, but still.
That seems like the exact anti Star Trek.
Yeah, and I felt like, I mean, a lot of us felt like we were living through a sci-fi dystopia during that time, like things that we would have read in fiction before, and now we're living through. This is why the genre of cyberpunk doesn't really hit as much now, I think, than it did in the past, because we're practically living in what was set up in those
Yeah,
books. In between neuromancer, yeah, what William Gibson set up in Neuromancer and Elsewise is kind of like, gosh, the world's being run by corporations, and everybody's kind of morally ambivalent about things, like, and it's a day that ends in Y. What?
what is it he says? The world looked like a TV station
Oh,
turned
the
into
yeah, the
a
sky above the harbor looked like a TV station tuned to a
station
dead
turned
channel.
to the dead channel, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, of all the, of all the great opening lines for a book or a story. I mean, I always, the few times that I've tried to actually write a story or something, it's always that first line. How do you hook somebody in and set the tone? You couldn't pick a better way of sort of
That is
just
epic.
world building in one sentence. It's like, good God, what a genius.
I mean, but then you have to ask. Then you have to go to this thing and ask: do modern people even know what that means?
Well, yeah, a dead channel, like tuned to a dead channel. Who tunes to a channel? Yeah, there's all this archaic. I mean, now or anachronistic language that
Yeah, like
you and I
you,
get, but like even when anybody says like roll the tape, what does that mean anymore? It's like,
yeah. I mean, every time something went wrong in a sort of video system in a movie,
mhm.
uh, 20 years ago or whatever, when we were young, uh, it was just flicker. But now that makes no sense. If
Right.
it's a digital transmission,
Yeah.
it makes no sense, right?
Yeah, technology has advanced so quickly within just a couple of generations that, like I you and I have astride a pre-digital / internet age and a post-digital internet age, and we have knowledge and experience of mechanisms and terminology that is just ancient history to people only 20 years our junior now, which is just such a. I can't imagine if the further you go back in time. I remember like 50 years between someone in 1875 and 1925 probably wouldn't have felt all that different, in
No,
relative
no.
terms. Yeah, but now that we've advanced and things move so fast and technology develops so quickly and media
I
and
mean,
references,
it's
yeah,
really fast.
it's really fast. And there's no, and here's the thing. I'm just learning this or I'm relearning this. So my sister, for those of you in the chat that know Sister Scribe, she has started dating a guy who is approximately 20 years her junior. Very summer winter relationship. But as I'm meeting this guy and I'm talking to him, the distance of modern history between his knowledge and our knowledge, it just started dawning on me just how quickly things have shifted between, and especially like not having a shared experience. Like when we were growing up, there were like 5 channels. There was only a few movies that came out every year. If you knew of a TV show, it's because there were only 5 options. And now there's such a glut of media. There's such an enormity of stuff out there.
Okay, hold on. I
Sure.
have to make a biological
Yes.
deposit.
All right. I will entertain.
Can you
while
talk
you're
to the
gone.
chat?
Yes, I can talk to the chat. Let's see. Okay, chat. If you got
I'll be
questions
back.
for me or questions you want to set up for Undoomed, those of you that are still here, as we're rambling on, and hopefully Undoomed has turned off his microphone. Let's see. Anything you want to ask? Anything you want to say? Apologies. When I get really focused on a stream or talking to somebody, I tend to my eyes tend to drift away from the chat and almost look at the microphone like I'm looking at a person. So apologies for that. So if you have anything you'd like to add here or say or otherwise. Let's see. Bookworm Addict. Win to the Lightning of the Vineyard at Benigna Winery and Vineyard. Got a $5 voucher for wine and a $5 voucher for food. $5 voucher for wine? Boy, $5. That can buy that stick of gum you always wanted. Has the chat frozen on me? Is there maybe something's wrong with the chat? or no, we're not interesting enough to have anything to say. I can understand that as we're rambling on. Let me refresh the chat here because I think maybe I've missed something. Oh, I think my chat froze. I think that's part of the problem. Let me yeah, it could be the case, guys, that I've been looking at a point in time from like many minutes ago. Let's see here. I think that was the case. I think chat froze. That's what it was. Everybody's been saying things. I just haven't seen it because my chat froze up, and it was a point in time for like 20 minutes ago.
Hey, everyone.
Let's see. Yeah, so what happened was my chat at some point froze, and I didn't know it. So people have been saying things. I just haven't seen them.
Okay.
So Kuroso says, how bad was your hangover after Thursday? Actually, not that bad. Truth be told, I did a 4.5 hour TEDx stream, doing 3 TEDx's for Thanksgiving on my Ted's Giving stream, and I had a little bit of booze, but no,
you've been talking, so that doesn't matter, right?
That's true. Let's see. Chair 628. Holy crap, Undoomed. I just saw you on the side panel recommended to me for the first time in a long time. Yeah, Undoomed resurrected himself today with his new video on Kamala Harris, and now here he is with me.
Yes, that's true.
How long has it been since your last video or
probably
whatever?
A year. Probably a year.
Jeez. Just been busy boy, huh?
Yeah, I have been so busy, and I wish I had like some guy that could just come up to me and suggest ideas. Because it's not just that I couldn't find the time, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like I couldn't find anything interesting to talk about. Um, and obviously, I have been extremely busy.
Sure.
So it's not just that, but um, I also couldn't find anything interesting to talk about. So I need a muse. Can I get can you guys become my muse somehow?
Was I just had my 8th YouTube anniversary in October,
Hmm.
and I was thinking about this time, and like my struggle now, as far as like stuff for my channel,
Right,
is trying to come up with something to say that I haven't already said, because like I've been railing against things like DEI for years, and all of a sudden in the last year or two
right,
now, suddenly everybody else has become aware of it, and then it's like, well, I feel like everybody else is late to the party, but at the same time, it's like I'm glad that people are finally paying attention. But then it's like I don't know what new to say about it that hasn't already been said by me or others. So I feel
right.
like I'm just sort of like, dog paddling. But yeah, no, I
And
have that.
this obviously happened to me years ago with all these. I mean, we didn't even have the same terminology back then. What would we call these things?
Social justice, feminist, radical
Social
feminist. Yeah.
justice. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was
Socialist warriors.
basically the same thing as
Yes.
DEI.
Yeah. There's a proto DEI stuff. Yeah.
Yes, and you know, um, I kind of said what I had to say, and then I had to sort of just move on and do my job. Um, but
The
then
thing. Yeah.
when this election happened, I was like, huh, I should really try to make a little video about why
Mm-hmm.
this happened. So that's what I did.
The thing that keeps driving me, and has over the years, is and the best example I can give is there was this sort of debate slash conversation that took place between Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, and gosh, what was that guy? There was a couple of like Jewish scholars, and they were on a stage and they were just kind of debating, is there an afterlife or something like that?
Right.
And at a certain, and this is in the latter, let's say, year or two of Hitchens' life before he died,
Right.
and somebody, I think it was somebody in the audience, asked him why he keeps debating religious figures, since at that point he'd been doing it for a few years at that point. And
Yes.
his rationalization was, he says, well, people, and I'm paraphrasing strongly here, but he says that, people who listen to Sam Harris and I speak on a regular basis are probably pretty bored with us, because we constantly have the same arguments from evidence and rational and all this kind of thing. And he says, but the thing is about the religious, you never know what they're going to say next. You never know what they're going to do to try to justify their positions or their moralizations or anything else. And that's kind of the tact I've taken with this stuff. It's like, okay, what's going to be the next avenue that someone tries to sell me on the idea that DEI is good, or that feminism in the modern day makes sense? That's kind of like there's going to be,
Oh,
there's got to be a new sales pitch. So I'm always waiting for that new sales pitch. That kind of what keeps me interested.
oh, yeah, and that happens every day. I
Mm-hmm.
just saw that right before we went on the stream. I
Mm-hmm.
saw what's his name? Dark 2525. Does that ring a bell?
Vaguely.
It's some guy that used to be like a huge Gamergate
Yeah, it sounds,
guy.
it's distant in my memory. It sounds familiar. Yeah. Okay.
I don't really remember that much about him either, to be
Hmm.
honest. But yeah, he was some sort of Gamergate guy, and he was super against all the shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And today he came out with a video that said why I'm no longer against anything woke. Like everyone's submitting.
What?
They're just being
Lost their
submissive.
minds. lost their minds, like at the Trump Derangement Center. I was like, oh my god, okay. Oh boy, you know, and
What's it? Let's see here. I can't read your name. Blue collar, something.
blue collar Canuck.
Yes,
So
maybe that's it.
purportedly a Canadian. Purportedly.
Yes, he says Dark Matter 2025.
Dark Matter. Okay. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
That's the guy I was thinking.
Okay.
Thinking of. Yes, and he came out with a video today. I haven't watched the video, so I can't say if it's a good video or not. I just saw it. It came out, and it was like, why I'm no longer against anything woke or something like that. So yeah,
it wasn't that long ago. I had to correct somebody. Somebody, I forget where, whether it was on Twitter or something. Somebody said, you know, all these right wingers diminishing all these good thoughts and good programs and movements by calling them woke. And I was like, excuse me, woke is what they called themselves back in 2014. I have a video of it actually, where we have a college class going like, stay woke. No, it's one of those things where it's like, that's what they called themselves. They called themselves the enlightened. They called themselves the ones who were aware and the rest of us weren't. And it got turned back around on them because they were just promoting very old and regressive ideas, but trying to rebrand them as something virtuous.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry, that's not very sci-fi. Although it is a little bit sci-fi if you think about it in sort of like a 1984, you know, Department of or Ministry of Information or Ministry of Truth or whatever.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah. After we leave this, I'm going to have to watch that video, see what the hell he's talking about.
Ooh, then you do a response video from Undoomed on another YouTuber. That would take me back.
I guess that thing is completely dead.
You know, I have a feeling. So here's the thing: with as much flashbacks as I'm having to post 2016, with the way people are reacting and behaving post 2024, I have a feeling that there's going to be a renaissance of the old response commentary video genre, just because there's such desperation to try to claw back something from what they've now lost of their egos after the election, that a lot of the really crazies are going to double down even more now, because they know, or they don't want to admit to themselves, not only have they lost the electoral college, but they've lost the popular vote, so to speak, and the population at large. And I think that's really going to drive the media is going to have to adapt, because they realize their audience has left them, but the activist crazies will have nowhere to go but to dig deep.
Do you think the media will accept it, though?
The market forces are going to require them to, because they might have been able to live. See, in 2016, they could delude themselves into thinking, and not unjustifiably so, that while the process may have put Trump into office, the people were still with them, because most people voted for Hillary Clinton. So the public at large was still on their side, and so they could feel like, oh, we are speaking for now the repressed, the disenfranchised by the system population. They don't have that illusion anymore to live under, unless they're completely lying to themselves. Because things have shifted so drastically in the last 4 years. So I think not only culturally, but the market forces, and especially what we've seen as the results of the hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on woke messaging media, like from Disney Plus and NBC and all these other places, have just completely failed in getting viewership numbers. I think they have no choice financially but to admit the truth at this stage of the game.
I hope you're right, but I'm not sure.
It's not going to be easy. No, don't get me wrong. I've heard so many people say, "Oh, no, woke is dead. It's been defeated." Like, no. Never underestimate a cornered animal. Okay, these guys have been operating for the longest time on the most virulent, zealotrous virtue signaling ever. And they're
Yeah.
not suddenly going to go quietly into the night because suddenly the bad guy won. The people who can will double down as the new resistance, and the people who are beholden to market forces are going to have to make some changes. There's been some indications from Warner Discovery, especially David Zaslav, that he is glad the gates are being open to going back to a more traditional model of entertainment and not trying to pander to agendas so much. But a lot of the companies that made it part of their culture over the last 5 or 6 years, and all the people running it are true believers. Those are going to be the ones that are harder to change. But we've already seen it, like Disney,
like Amazon, Rings of Power.
Yeah, Amazon Rings of Power. Do you know that if it weren't for, I suddenly forget her name, but the lady who was in charge of entertainment at Amazon, we were 2 steps away from having the greatest Conan live action series ever from Amazon, until the lady who was in charge said, no, that's too much toxic masculinity. So they canceled that, fired the guy, and the guy that wrote all the scripts for Conan, Warner Brothers, HBO said, hey, you want to come write a prequel Game of Thrones series for us? He's like, sure. And then the Blood of the Dragon or whatever comes out, and everybody's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Oh man, I wish we had a Conan series. Oh, anyway.
That would have been much better.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that the Rings of Power is actually the greatest flop in human history.
Based on the budget? Yeah. I mean, $1 billion spent on that first season or something. It's almost as bad as the Kamala Harris campaign. Not quite. I don't know how much the budget was on the second season, but yeah, they've run that into the ground. Like,
well, they probably had almost the same.
Probably, or I mean, if they didn't spend $1 billion on season 2, it still wasn't cheap.
No, I think that was. I think all their costs were like dictated in the contract.
Had to be, probably, yeah.
Yeah,
but of course, Amazon's got unlimited funds to spend, and Bezos wanted to have his own Game of Thrones, but he handed it to the absolute wrong people to run it. So.
And the funniest thing is that Jeff Bezos hasn't been all that into the woke stuff either, has he?
No, I feel like, sort of like with what happened, and I don't know all the forces at hand, but like sort of like what happened with George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy, is that he was sold a bill of goods that the people below him that he put in charge of this stuff would handle it. And then he just kind of had a relatively hands-off, trust me story kind of thing. And then it just went completely awry without a whole lot of oversight, and got, became more than he could control and just went on in its own way, which is sad because...
At least he has control, though.
Well, I mean, does he though?
George Lucas has no control. I mean, obviously,
no, he had no control.
All he can do is mold.
Yeah, right? but if Bezos didn't see the writing on the wall after season 1, why the heck he kept the same people in charge for season 2? I don't understand.
I mean, I don't even know. If he watches that shit, right?
Yeah,
he could have been like, "What? Oh, that division. I'm not." Look, I'm thinking about Alexa shit here, and I'm thinking about this shit. I'm doing all this stuff for shipping, and someone's like, "Why didn't you think about the Rings of Power?" And he's like, "What?" Oh.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, if I was a multi-billionaire, I probably had my eyes on different things. And actually, if I was a multi-billionaire, I'd just quit. Like, what more do I have to accomplish at that? I never understand people that are like just filthy rich, and yet they still. This is always the conundrum for me, because I try to think about if I suddenly had or got into something where I was like ridiculously wealthy, would I still continue to try to mine for the same thing that made me wealthy? Or would I just say, you know what, maybe it's just time to do something else. Because see these movie stars, like when the pandemic hit, and they were so just absent attention that they did these videos like, hey everybody, let's all sing Imagine All the People and all this other stuff and get together. Like, can you guys just like find something more fulfilling in your life than having to have the adoration and attention of other people? Like is not it being like, filthy rich and being financially independent and it can do anything you really want to do, but you really still need that dopamine hit of people saying you're so awesome. Like, come on, get a life. Anyway,
Well,
that's not sci-fi
yeah.
so much, but I'm sure there's a sci-fi angle there.
No, but the follow question for that is, of course, is there a sci-fi show that is new where it's not just about DEI?
I mean, the first season or two of this is this is a few years old now, unfortunately, but I guess I only started watching it recently. The first couple of seasons of The Expanse really did dig into that sort of hard sci-fi and sort of moral questions of culture and what happens when
Sure,
the future.
yeah,
But like really recently, I'm trying to think of any sci-fi shows I've bothered watching recently. What have I watched recently? Now most of the stuff I've been watching has been like.
I mean, the sad part is, as far as I can tell, it's not even about that anymore. It's just about continuing the story, like Lost, right?
Mm-hmm.
I saw an Apple's show that was called Silo.
Yes, I've heard about that. I heard that was pretty good.
Yes, of course. If Apple does something, they have more money than God. Of course, it's going to look good.
Right.
It's going to be the most gorgeous thing ever because
Mm-hmm.
they have more money than God. And so I watched it, and then I got to the last episode, and then it just turned into Lost. Like,
yeah.
Oh, now I get it. So you're just gonna string us along.
Yeah, I guess the show's similar to that. It's not. I guess technically it's not sci-fi, or at least we're not sure if it is yet. From Amazon.com or Amazon Prime's From, which is such a cock tease Lost series of just like, okay, I mean, when I watched Murder, She Wrote back in the day, it was possible for the audience to figure out the solution to the crime before the characters did if you paid enough attention, because you actually saw all the evidence that Angela Lansbury saw, and you could maybe piece out who the real villain was before the end of the episode. Matlock never did that. Matlock always brought in like a last piece of evidence, last second, that was off camera, and I hated that show. Even though I loved Andy Griffith and I loved the whole shebang of it, it was always like, I can't participate in this as sort of like someone who's trying to solve the problem because there's this Deus Ex Machina thing. With shows like Lost and From, where it's like we have to drag out the mystery box, we can't give you the clues that you could figure out yourself. We got to leave all this ambiguity for theory crafting, and then we'll yank it out from under you at the last second. Every single episode of From has been like that, and I'm 3 seasons deep into the thing now, and it's like one of those things where it's like, well, I've waited this long for the bus, I guess I'm gonna watch season 4 when it comes out, because at this point I feel like I've put too much time into it.
Is that an Apple series?
It's an Amazon series. Yeah, it's all these people mysteriously end up stuck in this same weird like multi-dimensional or time something town, and there are monsters chasing them, and there's all these mysteries, and why are we here, why were we brought here, what's our purpose? It's one of those things, and it keeps teasing like they're going to give you something, or that if you pay attention close enough you'll be able to figure out like what's really is this some kind of computer simulation, are they able to teleport it here, is this some kind of supernatural thing, is it hell, is it purgatory? No. 3 seasons in, nothing. Anybody who hasn't watched this show yet, I cannot recommend you even spend a minute on it, but God knows I'm probably going to spend more on season 4 just to find out if they actually have a solution to this, because, oh, God, it's so frustrating. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. When it comes to Lost and that kind of quote unquote storytelling, ugh, God,
I hate that.
I
Can't
absolutely hate it.
stand it.
Yeah, either you have a story or you don't. You want to tell us something. I hate streaming series.
I saw a tweet um, today,
Hmm.
actually, and it said that J.J. Abrams is one of the greatest uh, directors ever, unless or if it weren't for the fact that he always gives his stories to this humongously bad story writer called J.J. Abrams.
Right. Yeah, no, Abrams is a good director as long as he's not directing his own material.
Yes.
Yeah, is if somebody else is writing it, it's great, but he is not a good writer. He is stuck on the mystery box tease.
Yes. He is
That's it.
such a fucking moron with that.
Yeah. There are some artists that can wear those two or three hats, writer, director, producer, and get away with it. Some. It's not very many. And it's not always throughout their entire life. There's a sort of a golden period or a magic hour, let's say, in their lifetime, where you have a Ridley
Yes.
Scott, who's both the writer and the producer and the director, or a James Cameron.
Not anymore.
Not
Anymore.
well, not to say not anymore, but not the ones that we would just have name recognition. Are like Ridley Scott is far past his prime as wearing all those hats and being like a genius. Like Scorsese, Coppola, like they had their time and now they're trying to cling on to their glory days by resurrecting their old franchises or trying to do it's like no, the guy there was a time and it stopped. This is why like Mel Brooks was so smart to start producing movies and not always writing or directing. Like Mel Brooks produced The Fly. Most people don't know this. Like that, Jeff Goldblum's The Fly, produced by Mel Brooks, the comedy, but one of the greatest sci-fi remakes ever made. Know when your time has come and find a new lane to operate in that's more suited to you. And some things are a young man's game, so to speak, or someone who's got a really good idea, and then you just got to kind of move on. You can't maintain the glory days forever.
Yes. Especially with what's his name? Ridley Scott, obviously.
Ridley Scott, yeah, trying to resurrect Gladiator and Alien and all this. It's like, dude,
he's tried every. He's just doing. He's just doing sequels now, and
yeah.
I'm sure if you would have asked young Ridley Scott about sequels, it'd be like, "Fuck that. That's for B directors."
Yeah, and especially,
I'm sure he would have said that.
Especially sequels to movies that don't need them. I mean, Gladiator.
Yeah.
There's like not everything has to have a sequel. There's a great, and it's years old now. And those of you in the chat that haven't heard of this, I highly recommend. There's a great BBC series. I think it was BBC. It was a British series from years ago. It was the first time that I ever saw Idris Elba before he became super famous. It was called Ultraviolet. Okay. And it was this like 8-episode series about modern day vampire hunters. Okay. And it just happened to be the case that the guy who wrote the entire series also ended up directing all the episodes. Right. And it was 8 episodes. It tells an amazingly compelling story and sets up a whole lore for how these vampires work in the modern world and everything else. And then at the end of it, the BBC or whoever came to the guy who basically had all control over the property and everything else said, "Hey, we'd love to do a second series. Do you think you got a second series in you?" And the guy turned to him and said, "I said everything I have to say. I'm done." And that's it. And there is there's a merit to that where it's like, I've told the story that I have to tell. There's nowhere else to go with it. And there's plenty of series out there that I wish they'd done that, where the first season of a series is so strong And then, of course, every subsequent season sucks. Like there's a great series out there, if you guys haven't seen, called Penny Dreadful. And Penny Dreadful posited this sort of Victorian age world where all of these Victorian and Gothic characters were real, like Frankenstein and Dorian Gray and all these other characters existed in the same world at the same time. And the first season is amazing, like utterly just amazing. And then you get to the second season, and I think to myself, the writers for this show had a really great idea, and then they were press ganged into service to come up with a sequel real quick. And this is the result. Same thing with the old series Carnival. Although those guys kind of got shafted because they were expecting to have 2 or 3 seasons and they had to like truncate everything into a second season. A lot of these shows, like Stranger Things, like the first season's really strong, and it's like, how do we continue?
I've had that series on my hard drive for a long time now. Carnival's
first season's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Is it good?
The themes and the characters and just the subtext of that first season taking place. I mean, of all things, to have like this quasi fantasy supernatural take place during the Dust Bowl and the Depression. It's such an interesting era to put that in, and everything that's going on. And the setups in that first season are like amazing. And then they got the rug pulled out from under them, and they're told, yeah, we're not going to give you 3 seasons or 4 seasons. You got 2. And then they try to smash in all these plot points that they had imagined stretching out over a couple of seasons and building up, and it really doesn't work. It's unfortunate. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't the creators' fault in that case. It wasn't that they had no good ideas or something, that they were forced into a corner. And the second season isn't nearly as satisfying. But that first season, man, it sets up a whole new world of possibilities in storytelling. And the acting's great. Oh, I can't recommend the first season more highly. Second season, you kind of have to watch it because it's there to see what happens with some of the storylines, but it's not nearly as good.
Well, at least I have it. So
yeah, well, if you haven't watched it, and I would tell you what, as far as like opening credit sequences, nothing, save for maybe Daredevil, has been beaten or has beaten Carnival. The opening sequence to Carnival is it's still beautiful, absolutely amazing. Anyway, I could go on. I'm a nerd.
Oh, please do.
What property of sci-fi do you love that either has yet to be given a either TV or theatrical interpretation, or in your opinion hasn't been given a justified interpretation on screen?
Arthur C. Clarke.
Just anything in general?
Well, basically 2001.
You don't think you don't think that Stanley Kubrick did it justice?
No.
Okay. Why is that?
He did a music video. I want a movie.
Okay.
Because
Kubrick had a tendency to reinterpret the material. He was like with The Shining and everything else. He would take the sort of core elements of it and then just kind of make his own thing. So.
Yes, and I don't think he made the book justice at all. Have you read the book?
I have not, no.
Okay. The book is so much deeper.
Sure. Well, can any movie, I mean, outside of maybe like a TV series, can any movie really encapsulate an entire book effectively?
I guess not, but I think any movie could encapsulate 2001 better than the movie did.
Okay.
Holy fuck. That's just a music video. I think that's one of the worst movies ever made.
Wow. Okay. Because it's usually honored as like one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest fucking sci-fi. Blah, blah, blah. It has great effects. It's great.
It's technically amazing. I mean, on a technical sort of like filmmaking level. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I mean. It's a music video. It's like everything is great. Everything is technically amazing and blah, blah, blah. I can't argue with that.
The graphics
But
are great, but the gameplay sucks, is what you're saying.
yeah, it's just not a great movie because it's a music video. It's not technically a movie.
Okay. Yeah, there's certain sacred cows in the sci-fi cinematic
I know that
community that you're
there's
not
these.
allowed to criticize, and like
You're
2001 is one of them.
not allowed to not like 2001, and I think
Right.
um, it's not really a movie.
Okay. Okay. I
And
mean,
I'm
that
hearing
was yeah.
I'm hearing you're disagreeing. So
No, no, no,
let's
no, no,
hear
no,
it.
no. I am I'm Switzerland on 2001. I
Mm.
appreciate it for its visuals, its technical elements, especially for the time that it was filmed. The implications of it. Not having read the book, obviously, I don't have any compare and contrast mentality towards it. So if I'd read the book previously or afterwards, I'd probably have a completely different opinion. Sort of like I have with the Dune interpretations.
Right.
But as a
I've read
movie,
all the
yeah.
books, including they go on. It's like 2001,
Mm-hmm.
2010, 2049,
Yes.
3001. There's a whole bunch of them. And if they could have just followed those books,
But can
Jesus Christ.
anybody at this point? I mean, it feels like 2001 and its sequels or whatever else. It feels like one of those things, sort of like Gone with the Wind, that can never be revisited because it is considered such a seminal classic that it would be sacrilege to try to redo it or retell it. Do you think someone could or would be able to do it justice? Like let's say like an
No,
HBO
no,
series or something.
no, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um, it would probably be uh, anything where you do every time you do a remake, people are going to be like, "Why did you do a remake? The original
Hmm.
was great, right?"
Right.
And this is probably the original uh, movie that where that would happen,
Hmm.
right? If someone was going to do a remake on 2001, that would be the first movie that where people would be like, "No, why are you doing that? The original was awesome."
Hmm.
Um, because it is considered one of the most classic movies ever,
Hmm.
uh, and you can't take that away from it.
There was a this is a sort of side thing. As far as like remaking a movie you shouldn't remake. Um, have you seen the remake of Psycho?
Which one?
Well, the Gus Van Sant one with God, I suddenly forget his name. The guy who played Norman Bates in the remake. Um, Somebody in the chat's going to get it before I do because I suddenly forget his name. The guy from Wedding Crashers. You know what I'm talking about. There is a theory, and I forget exactly who I heard it from the first time. There's a theory that Gus Van Sant agreed to remake Psycho specifically in order to ensure that no one would ever try to remake it again because he just makes sort of like a pale facsimile, so as to sort of like in a way backwards hermetically seal the classic as the one that shall never be touched again because it doesn't need to be. Like somebody was going to do it anyway, so I might as well be the one to do it and make sure nobody else tries again because this will just prove
Mhm.
that it doesn't need to be touched.
Is that true though?
I don't I like the theory. I like the theory on sort of an artistic level. It's like I'm going to put a stopgap between anybody's idea that they should ever try to remake this movie again because I'm going to prove it's completely pointless. Like I feel like falling on your sword for the sake of the artistry of the classic. I kind of like that idea. If someone were to try to
Right,
remake
right.
2001, obviously the accusation would be, well, how could you improve on Kubrick? Because as
Well,
though it
you
were
could,
Kubrick's
but
story.
that's the thing. You could. Have you
I
seen
know.
2010?
Yeah. Oh, Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn. Thank you,
Have
IR
you
in the
seen
chat. Yeah.
2010?
Yes, I have seen 2010.
2010 is a much better movie than 2001.
Yeah, because it's not as show offy of the visuals and just
Yeah,
relying
it's
on
it's
relying
an
on the
actual
yeah
movie.
Yeah, it actually tells a story and has characters.
It
And
has a
yeah,
story, it has characters, and
it's not
everything
so
that
abstract. It's not.
2000,
Yeah, it's not as abstract.
2001 doesn't have. Like,
Yeah. Um,
and if you do that, then of course someone could say like, "Hmm, maybe we could redo that."
yeah, I mean, there are certain cinematic sacred cows. Like I said, Gone with the Wind,
It is of course
2001.
it is of course weird when the year has already passed.
Yeah, that's the
All these
thing.
movies were made before
Yeah, that makes
2010.
it difficult. Like Blade Runner. Blade Runner sets its year. That's of the one thing I wish Blade Runner hadn't done was to establish what year something takes place in. Because it's just like,
I've
okay,
always
yeah,
thought that was pissed off.
yeah,
That's
that was a bad
such a
idea.
stupid thing.
Bad
Uh,
idea.
Never do that. Always
No,
do like the Max Headroom thing.
right. 20 minutes into the future. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
20
Yeah,
minutes.
20 minutes into the future, or not even 5 years from now or something. Maybe I guess that's a
It
better.
doesn't matter. Like
perspective.
make sure it's relative.
Yeah, yeah. Just indicate that this is not today. This is something else. And obviously, some stories are always going to be dated even after that. Like I remember.
Yeah, but
What
that
was it?
doesn't matter if you just say it's like 5 years from now.
Yeah. 5 years from like there was one of my favorite sci-fi movies. I should have brought this up earlier. Do you know the movie Strange Days?
Oh, is that when they get those things where they can read people's minds?
Yeah, so it's Rafe Fiennes, Angela Bassett, Vincent
Oh,
D'Onofrio in a
that
relatively
yeah,
small part.
there's like a serial killer who can feel
Yeah,
what his
so the
victims are feeling, right?
yeah the one sci-fi element in that movie, and I always like sci-fi where. Well, I mean, either you go all the way, or there's just one thing that's kind of sci-fi that kind of affects. But anyway, the one thing in the sci-fi element of that movie is that people's memories can be recorded and then replayed into your own mind, so you can experience them. And that's
Right. So
and it
that's
becomes this kind of
and
drug vicarious thing. Yeah.
and then there's a serial killer who uses that, right?
Yeah, there's a killer on the loose who uses this technology in some sadistic ways to both torture his victims and also tease his pursuers without giving too much away. And it's one of my favorite sort of relatively modern sci-fi movies because the world that it presents really isn't all that much different from reality. It's got this one fantastic. This is the one thing about fiction that I appreciate the most, where you're allowed one fantastic element and any organic consequential elements that derive from that.
Right.
In some of the best sci-fi, and the performances are great, the soundtrack's great, and it's just this sort of sci-fi noir enough. Or what do they call it? Tech Noir, which is the name of a club in Terminator.
Terminator, right.
which became its own name for a genre, Tech Noir, where you have this sort of like dark science fiction kind of stuff going on. But yeah, so Strange Days is great because it's sci-fi, but again, that element is just a driver for the story.
I remember that part of the story really shook me. Like that was disturbing.
Yeah, no, I know what part you're thinking of. I don't want to give too much away for anybody who hasn't seen it, but yeah, no, there's a part in there where the villain uses the technology to torture his victims as he's going through the process, and it makes you cringe inside. And Ralph Fiennes' acting when he's exposed to this information and everything else it doesn't show all that much. This is the thing. It's one.
I think this is a 25-year-old movie. I'm not sure we should be worrying about spoiling it.
Oh well, okay. So basically, this guy uses this technology where you can record someone's mind and their sight, their sensations, everything. So basically, imagine an entire sensory experience being plugged
Okay,
into your
but
brain.
okay, I think I can explain it much more simply.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so imagine you're a serial killer, right?
Just imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, and you love killing people.
Hmm.
Now, imagine how much more pleasure you can get if you put like a thing on their head where you can make those people experience the pleasure you're feeling while you're killing them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sick. It is so sick, and it's done so
It's
well
so
in the movie.
twisted and sick
Yeah.
that I couldn't get it out of my mind for
Yeah.
several weeks
It
after
is
I saw it.
scarring. It was honestly, when I was a kid, when I saw that, that whole sequence, that whole element of the story, really, I mean, the visceral disgust and horror of it, and even in the film, when this happens, it's not graphic per se. I mean, there's a pretty dark sequence that shows it, but it's not horribly graphic, but just the implication, because the way that they've set up the explanation for how this works, and especially Ray Fiennes' performance when he's having to experience what was experienced by the experiencer. It's it's so memorable and
Yeah,
so powerful. It's great. I love that. If you guys haven't seen Days, look it up. It's great. It's great.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
know that that movie has some sort of connection to James Cameron, but I think it's
Uh,
his wife, right?
yes. Yeah. His. I don't know if they were still married at the time, but yeah. Oh crap! What was her name? I suddenly, as soon as I say that, it leaves my name. But she was the director. Catherine Bigelow. She
Yeah.
was the director of Strange Days. She was the director of Hurt Locker. She was also the director of one of my favorite vampire movies ever made, Near Dark.
Oh, Near
Um,
Dark. Yeah,
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 Near
yeah.
Dark's great, except for the ending, except for the happy ending. But otherwise, Near Dark's a great vampire movie.
Yeah. I'm sure she was forced into that.
Um, no,
Or
as far as I
or
recall, she and the guy that she wrote it with, Eric Red, they had wanted to do some kind of western kind of thing, and then they came up with an
uh,
idea to do a vampire western, which really hadn't been done before. So it was kind of this, South Texas setting, vampire traveling band
right,
coven kind of
right.
thing. And of course, because of her connection to James Cameron, and I think Aliens, the movie, had come out a year or two before then. She was able to get Lance Hendrickson and a couple of the cast members Bill Paxton to
Right,
join the
because
cast. Oh
oh
God,
yeah, okay, because James Cameron was married to all these women. So
yeah, yeah. James Cameron's married. Well,
what was the order? Was he married to Gail Ann Hurd
I
first,
think it was
or
Gail Ann Hurd, and then it was Catherine Bigelow, and then it was
uh uh well then it
Terminator
was
Girl.
obviously a Terminator girl,
Yeah,
whatever his
ooh, I
name.
suddenly forget her name all of a sudden. You know what I'm talking about. And
Yes.
not her twin sister though, who showed up in Terminator 2.
No, no.
Yeah, yeah.
Um
Somebody in the chat's going to tell us before I can remember, because I just can't. I just I
Linda Hamilton.
Linda
Come on.
Hamilton. Yeah, I hate.
Yeah.
That is one of my biggest pet peeves about myself, is where I can see someone's face, I should know their name, and somehow it just escapes me. It's right there. Like, I hate that.
Oh, well, that happens. That happens to
I
me
know.
all the time. Come on.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
need to step
uh,
away again, just for a moment, if I can, just for a moment.
of course,
Here.
of course. How you doing, chat? Let's check out what's going on with you. See here, Saint Winston. Hey, how you doing, Saint Winston? Y'all doing all right? Hmm. Um, Trying to see some new stuff here. Um, Psycho 216. When did you turn 60? That's a long way off, buddy. I have not turned 60. uh, let's hear some chat stuff here. Brucknell. uh, or however you pronounce that name, Undoomed. A shitload of shit. Okay, I gotta zoom in to see all this shit here. Hold on.
I am back.
Okay, I'm just watching here on the chat. A shitload of shitlord have some fun. Have some fun with bearing. Sugar
Oh,
tits and suit is still one of my favorite. Okay, um, I was trying to find a way to zoom into the shit, but anyway, um, bearing and sugar tits and suit are of course awesome people,
mm-hmm.
and I hope they're doing great.
Yeah, Barrington and Tits have been posting videos quite a bit lately.
Yeah, it seems like they're back at it again. Maybe they had a baby, right? So maybe the
Yeah,
baby's getting a little older and they have more time, right?
it feels like maybe things have stabilized where they can start doing more content and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because probably uh, they had to take care of the baby, obviously.
Sure. And now with the
That's
results
what
of the
you should
election,
do.
yeah, with the results of the election, there's going to be material to no end for the next 4 years.
Well, there would have been even more material otherwise, but
Oh man, you know, and not to get too far off topic, but man, if Kamala Harris had won, boy oh boy,
yeah,
I'd have practically daily streams just talking about what's going on today in Vod Kamala territory.
yes, that would have been also a very fruitful
Yes, yeah, yeah,
area.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's six of one thing, half a dozen of the other. It's like, oh no, Kamala Harris is president. Well, I've got monetized content for the next 4 years I can deal with.
Yeah, I really just hope they stop demonetizing shit that has to do with normal politics. I
Yeah,
understand. I
yeah.
understand if it's like terrorism shit and whatever. You can't put ads on that, but come on now. If people are just talking about normal politics, left, right, whatever,
Well,
fuck
YouTube,
sake.
yeah, YouTube is. I mean, it's going to be hard to conquer YouTube, but the more competitors that come up that are more laissez-faire about that, people are
Mm.
going to start to drift. Whether it's Rumble or X. I mean, Elon wants to make X into its own video platform like YouTube, like else, and there's plenty of an audience for it now if he actually is able to make it work.
Yeah, but he's not really making much strides.
No, he's not. I mean, the promise is there, the indications or rumors are, but it's so
I mean,
far
I
not
think the
quite.
technical ability is there, but um, how would you how can you find it? You can't find shit on Twitter.
Not the way that it's set up now. No,
No,
it's not built to be a video broadcasting platform. He'd have to come
no,
up with either a separate branch or a completely separate platform to do it on, because Twitter as it stands, yeah, you're going to have a
and
very funneled audience.
he's not going to do that. So
No.
what it's going to have to be is some sort of separate search engine.
Either that or he buys out some other platform and just integrates it into a switch over from Twitter or something. I don't know.
I
I don't
don't
know.
think so because he already has all the technology. Everything is there for Twitter to, compete with YouTube. But you can't search for anything. You can't find shit. I could
Yeah.
post a video today, and I was actually thinking about that. Maybe I should just post the latest video I made on Twitter. But 2 days later, you'll never be able to find that video on Twitter. But
No.
on YouTube, I could find it in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Do you understand the problem?
Well, yeah. No, I mean, well, Twitter's a completely different beast compared to YouTube. It's just not the same. I mean, yeah,
Yes.
the technology is there too, but Twitter would have to fundamentally change to something it isn't for it to be a competitor to YouTube. Unless
Well,
I
I
can't.
mean,
Maybe it's a lack of my imagination
it's
or something. I
it's not that Twitter would have to change what it is. It's just a search engine would have to change what it is. There's no way to find videos on Twitter.
well, it's not meant to be a video delivery service either.
No, I
Not
mean,
currently.
I know that, but now Elon wants to do that. So,
You'd have to have a separate tab. Let's say you have your social media tab, and then you have your Twitter or X, sorry, video or broadcasting tab. And you go to the broadcasting tab.
yeah,
Then
and
you introduce the algorithm and all the stuff that says this is what you're looking for, who you can follow, and that kind of thing.
I can't believe that he hasn't done that already.
Well, he's got his fingers in several pies at present, so.
You think?
Well, between like but fundamentally revising governmental financial process and launching rockets into space and catching them with girders and Twitter and Tesla.
Oh, did you see the stats?
The what now?
The stats on how many rockets the Earth launches?
No.
It was 670 launches from SpaceX. The closest, I think, was Roscosmos, the Russians.
Sure.
They launched 13
Are you talking about like total or like just in a year or something?
per year.
I could believe it.
It's like 13.
Yeah, but I'm still. Here's the thing, not to be a negative Nelly or anything. I'm still, aside from maybe going to the moon, I'm still not convinced that going to Mars makes any sense without some real good argument.
Why?
Financially, well, just financially doesn't seem to make any sense to me.
Well, imagine if people just went to the New World and then they just came back and said, fuck it.
No, I understand that argument, but on a practicality level, you're going to be sending people to a planet where they're going to have to die. There's really no way to reasonably come home again or anything else. And to what end? What would be the use of sending people to Mars versus at present at least not just setting robotic missions for testing and research and that kind of thing?
Well, first of all, people have always wanted to go to new places. So it's not really that, that they're going to be like, oh my God, we're going to be sent to Mars. They're going to want to go to Mars.
Sure.
So it's not a death sentence. It's like, it's like when people went to the New World. Like, hey, let's try this shit. Maybe it's better than our life here.
Well, except we know that it's not.
What do you? How can you know that what other people think is a good life?
Well, no, we know it's an inhospitable planet. I'm talking about like, in the New World, at least there was a promise of land, resources. We had an understanding.
That's exactly what the promise is on Mars.
But how do you effectively? Okay, I guess the question would be, what is the overriding benefit that Mars possesses that we would need or could take advantage of, and then how do you effectively exploit
space? Unlimited space.
Unlimited inhospitable space.
Well, for now.
No, I mean, I get the long-term sci-fi, so to speak, Red Planet kind of thinking about it. But I mean, just in practical terms, it makes more sense to me to colonize the moon first and get that squared away in a way that's.
That is the first thing. SpaceX is going to the moon.
Oh, I know, and I have no argument against moon exploration and colonization and everything else. I think Mars has to come after that.
I just think that moon exploration is so simple for us now. that it seems retarded to not do it.
Well, yeah, true. And I like I say, I've been wanting my moon base since 1986. But
Right. And it is going to happen now. Finally.
yeah, well, it's about 30 years delayed as far as I'm concerned. You got a super chat.
Yes. Let's see here. Adam Myers says, gonna ask for a book review if chill.
Book review
Okay.
of what?
I'm not sure what that means.
Hmm.
Do you have a book you want reviewed?
You're not talking about the big chill, are you? Well,
I
that's
have
a whole
no
other thing.
idea. You're gonna have to enlighten us, Adam Myers.
I guess what I mean to say is that right now, I don't see what going to Mars does for anybody except bragging rights.
Well, then you haven't been listening, because
Oh,
we
well,
have.
okay then.
No,
Well,
but seriously,
pardon me.
pardon you. Well, the thing is, if Elon Musk has one point that is really the point that is just destroys all other points that he has,
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that um, we need to be a multiplanetary civilization.
I
It just
agree.
has to happen.
Yes.
We're not going to Mars just to go to Mars. We're going to Mars to become a multiplanetary civilization because the Earth is going to get destroyed. We know it's going to happen. We're overdue. We're overdue for a huge honking asteroid that's going to come in and
Right.
destroy the Earth. We know this is going to happen, but we're just closing our eyes and putting our fingers in our ears and going la 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 la, right? Um, but it's going to happen. So we're going to have to be a multiplanetary civilization if we're going to survive. And Elon Musk is completely right about that.
Yes. No, I agree. But I just think that the timeline that has been, set, which is still to speculation, of course, the timeline for Mars versus us first conquering the moon and learning everything we can about interplanetary, not only habitation, but also communication, travel, commerce, so on and so forth. We first need to conquer the moon before we just sort of willy-nilly decide, oh, let's go to Mars before we even have the moon taken care of. I just think that needs to happen first. That should be the focus. And Mars is still
But
way out there.
of course, the moon is going to happen first.
Well,
Everyone's going.
Elon was, I mean, just a few years ago, Elon was saying we're already going to be on our way to Mars by now.
Yeah, but Elon likes to talk.
Well, well, which exactly brings me back around to my point. I get Elon's long term. Yes, we do need to be an interplanetary species. I completely agree with that. I've agreed with that, I think, since I was a kid with old sci-fi. I just don't feel like the timeline that he has set or the enthusiasm he's pushing towards Mars before we've conquered the moon makes any practical sense. Now, I'm not against going to Mars. I'm not saying we should never go to Mars. There's no point to it. I'm just saying we're not ready for it yet.
I don't know. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that I guess we're ready when we're there.
Yeah, we shall see. I mean, I'm not gonna. I won't be disappointed if we put
I mean,
feet on Mars or anything.
I am would definitely jerk off to the fact of going to Mars.
Masturbation. Okay. Well,
Masturbation. There we go.
there you go. Dundoomed is a masturbator.
Yes, I mean, I've made movies or videos on YouTube about Mars.
Sure. I remember them. Yeah, really good. And if you guys haven't watched those before, because, Doom's been out of circulation for about a year, go check out his library. Not only, here's the thing, not only his science videos, Mars or otherwise, but if you want to have a retroactive preview of the future, take a look at Undoom's SJW stuff from 2014, 2015, and onwards, because it's coming back. It's already here. It's coming again. Everything old is new again, and you'll be prepared for it.
Yeah,
It won't seem surprising, as we've seen all the same dance steps before.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're a little bit off on the year, so
When did you start YouTube?
I didn't even have an account back then, but I'm
I thought you were 2015, 20-ish,
yeah,
2016.
2015 is probably
Okay.
the first time I uploaded anything.
Because I was watching you before I started my channel, so it had to be before, or either early 2016 or back in 2015, because I didn't start until
No,
late
I mean,
2016.
I think I started my first thing in 2015.
Okay.
But I mean, you could have caught it early,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think anyone cared about anything I did back then.
Oh, I think I caught you. I must have caught you really early on, because
Right, right.
my sort of awakening to the manipulations of the media versus truth, which is kind of a weird thing to happen, but it came about because of Gamergate. To be able to watch on Twitter at the time, watch live as things progressed, and then seeing how ABC or somebody would report it the next day, and just seeing the absolute disconnect and reframing and transmogrifying of the story.
Oh,
It's one
so
of those things.
that was the first time you discovered that the media lied.
Well, I mean, it was the most. See, it's one of those things where you understand something in theory versus seeing it happen in front of your eyes. It's sort of like advice, right? Your father gives you advice about how to live your life, and sort of in your logical, pragmatic sense of stuff, you're like, yeah, he's probably right. But unless or until you experience it yourself, you don't have your own personal frame of reference for it. And so it's just kind of theory before it's reality. And Gamergate
Right.
really brought the theory into my direct reality. So
Okay,
it's not
so
that I didn't understand that media manipulates things, or seeing, documentaries on propaganda and things like that before, but something that was contemporary to me, that I had some understanding of and some stake in, like video games and stuff, and then to see it, how it was turned around, that was really, again, I don't know how I was to explain it. It's sort of like delayed revelation.
I'm just gonna put a hold on you right there and just say that, because I got a super chat here from Adam Myers again. Thank you very much. So he says, the book Nature of Predators by Daniel Pescap.
The nature of, oh, okay.
Yeah.
The nature of sounds like a criminal profiler, serial killer kind of thing.
I'm not sure how to interpret that.
From Amazon. When humanity finally begins to explore the stars, they are eager to befriend the civilizations they encounter, but galactic affairs are not so simple. An interplanetary war rages, and the fledgling human space navy finds itself caught between two sides of the war. The Federation, on one side, is comprised entirely of herbivorous species and is terrified of all predators, including humans. On the other side, the Arxur are carnivores who defeat and devour their enemies in combat. Okay, humankind's initial alliance with the Federation is on shaky grounds, and as if landing in the middle of a centuries-long war wasn't enough, they face an increasingly complicated galactic political landscape. Earth must fight for its survival while also showing restraints to avoid herbivore allies viewing them in the same light as the Arxur. Can humanity show a galaxy of potential friends and allies that they aren't the monsters lurking in the dark by protecting them from the Axur, or will the very attempt to do so show the depths of depravity and violence that humans can resort to?
Holy shit! Is that like a sci-fi series written by Vegan?
It's Nature of Predators, Book 1 by Daniel Pascar. Was released in December of 2023. It's available now on Amazon, either paperback or Kindle.
Well, there you go.
And
If you wanna look at it, there it is.
I feel like I'm throwing back to my old doing ads for people on my talk show back in the olden
No,
days.
but I mean, we're talking about it, so of
Yeah.
course, if people want to
Sure.
go look at it, go look at it.
I guess Earth became a
fine.
bunch of vegetarians, and then the rest of the galaxy is meat eaters, and then we have to fight.
Why did we became herbivores? I don't get
Oh,
it.
meat is murder.
Yes, but we've loved that for
But
billions of
it's
years.
wrong. It's wrong, Undoomed.
No, it's
What?
right.
Ah! I'm gonna have after that tone of voice, I'm gonna have to meter bait. Somebody clip that and make that your ringtone.
Yeah, somebody probably is. Well, I mean, that was an interesting story, but is that like a real book, or is it just
Yes,
like
it's a real book you can buy on Amazon. Apparently,
okay, awesome.
I mean, if I made that off the cuff, right off the top of my head, I'd be impressed with myself. No, I read that.
Right. Well, I mean, you heard it here, for folks.
Yeah, you got a free advertisement. There you go.
Yeah.
What's your most guilty pleasure science fiction book, movie, or otherwise, where it's like, it's cheese, but you love your kind of cheese?
Oh my God, it's
And not mentioning a specific episode of Star Trek, something else.
Window of opportunity.
What's that?
And I got around your specific thing there.
Oh, okay.
Because you said a specific Star Trek episode, but I am mentioning a specific Stargate SG-1 episode.
Okay,
because you didn't
right.
say that I couldn't.
Okay, all right. You got me. Why is it your guilty pleasure?
Because it's just the best piece of media ever made. I mean, have you not seen this thing?
Like I said before, I have not seen anything about Stargate that would be relevant. Yeah.
I'm going to come over to you and force you. I'm going to hold your head.
Oh my God.
We're going to watch SG-1.
Oh,
no,
Jesus.
but seriously, SG-1 is the greatest sci-fi series ever made. That's just the way it is. It's actually better than Star Trek. And the reason it is so great is because it's 50% humor, or sometimes even more. It's so fucking funny. I mean, I can't believe how funny that story is, right?
Can you have good sci-fi with a giant portion of humor, though?
Yes.
Okay. And I might be playing devil's advocate and asking that question, but I ask it all the same.
I think so. I mean, if you ask British people, I'm sure they'd be like, "Holy fuck yeah!" Right?
Why would I want to talk to British people? Ugh, good God, redcoats. We fought a whole war to get rid of those limeys. What the hell?
Yeah, I guess. That's
no. IR in the chat says Red Dwarf. Yes, Red Dwarf. Yes, I watch every year that the PBS would have their Red Dwarf marathons for telethons. I would watch every episode all the way through to the new season.
Well, why are you asking me these questions?
I'm eliciting your thoughts on it as devil's advocate for the sake of the audience to explain.
Okay,
yourself.
that's good. That's awesome. I appreciate that. That's actually a really good thing.
I'm trying to be a good co-host.
And you're being an excellent co-host. Thank
right.
you. No, but I I don't think I've ever laughed so much as I've done watching Stargate SG-1. It's obviously the greatest sci-fi show ever, but it's also the greatest comedy that's ever been created. It's just, it's this perfect mixture where you, me and my girlfriend, we put on SG-1 every time we feel a little sad or something because we know it's like we're just gonna laugh our ass off, and we're gonna get our sci-fi kick.
Okay.
It's magical.
Does the sci-fi
And
element? I mean, I'm assuming the answer is yes, but just it doesn't. Uh, is the sci-fi element strong enough that the humor does not overtake it?
oh yeah, oh yeah, it's
Okay.
not like some sort of, it's not comedy sci-fi.
Okay.
It's sci-fi with some comedy, but the comedy is so strong that you laugh your ass off. It's kind of like, have you ever seen Doctor House?
Sure. Yeah.
Doctor House is a drama, right?
Yes. Yeah. Technically speaking, yes, but it's also very, yeah, indeed, it's very funny.
But I have never laughed so much as when I've seen Doctor House, except for SG-1, right?
Well, the balance
Uh,
has to be right. The balance between humor that it doesn't undercut or overtake the drama. That's a very difficult balance to maintain. House did a really good job.
yeah, and House is like, oh my god, how funny is that?
Yes. Yeah.
And I, and SG-1 is that SG-1 is basically House, but um, every week it's just that funny. I can't explain it. It's so fucking funny.
All right. Well, I will. I don't know what I'm working on right now, series wise, but if I have the opportunity, I will attempt to crack into SG1 at some point.
Well, before you do that, I'm going to do a super chat here
Yep.
from Adam Myers, who says, uh, let's see here, not, it's more that they hate. Okay, so we're talking about that, the thing we were talking
Yes.
about before. Um, no, it's more that they hate us for eating meat. Uh, it is more counting the radicals. Vegetarianism, if anything, uh, figured you might like it. Okay. Um,
So a sci-fi series based at least primarily on the consumption habits of the creatures within the universe as a
I
sort of
I
moral dividing
guess.
line.
I
Yeah.
mean, okay. So let's see what he says here. I'll read it again. It's more counter radical.
Veganism.
It's more a counter to radical veganism. Okay. Um, okay. I mean, I guess.
That would be something I like. You know, if the first alien species we encounter is a bunch of intelligent cows, we're probably in trouble.
Yeah.
You know,
But
you've been eating
have you
our people.
did you see that, like, there was this story, not story, but uh, um, documentary about what would happen if we actually met ET, right? That was
Uh I've seen a
hosted,
yeah.
that was hosted by a bunch of heavy ass scientists,
Yeah.
and they all said like, we're gonna get eaten. Like, That's just the way it is.
Well, I mean,
They
yeah,
they wouldn't land here if they didn't want to eat us because they could if any other fucking resource they could go get. They could
yeah,
just go get in any other fucking asteroid or fucking uh, some belt around when you go to the Oort belt or whatever. Um, so if they're actually landing, they want to eat us.
yeah. The likelihood that somebody's going to come here in a benevolent fashion, go to the effort, is pretty slim, unless we
Yes.
happen to just luck out and like the Vulcans pass by and they see us and decide to land and say hello. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
if we encounter a species that has advanced to the point where they have interstellar travel and they make a point of coming to us, I mean, we might have a warning ahead of time because presumably they'd like we discover one of their probes or something, and then we might have some relatively brief period of time to prepare. But even then, like, yeah, their intentions are probably hostile.
Yeah.
There's in the this is actually kind of funny in the World War books I was mentioning earlier from Harry Turtledove, where he posits what would happen if aliens invaded during World War II. The alien species had sent probes to Earth many years previous to sort of scope out the planet and everything. But the way that these aliens evolved, they evolved in a very more slow and methodical way than humans. And so when they sent probes to Earth, they saw the inhabitants of the planet riding around on horses, hitting each other with sticks, and like, oh, okay, well, these will be easy to conquer. They didn't
Right.
have a concept of human ingenuity or the forces of innovation necessary between nations separated by oceans. And so when their invasion fleet shows up, and now we have tanks and nuclear bombs and machine guns, and they brought a force that was capable of taking over a planet with horses and sticks, and now like, oh, and that's where the interesting conflict comes in, amongst other things about that book. So yeah, um,
Right.
yeah. Anyway,
Did you watch the Three Body Problem?
I did, and I have a lot of problems with, at least with the Netflix version. I didn't read the books, can't read, but the Netflix version of it was utterly terrible. The
I've
characters were
heard that.
not. Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't read the book, so I don't know. But
The
I've heard
characters
that.
are yeah,
I've
characters are
heard that.
unlikable. Yeah, the characters are
Yes, I
unlikable.
mean,
The chain of events makes no sense. The motivations of certain people make no sense. The capabilities of the aliens uh, are practically omnipotent, and yet somehow they can't use them a second time
I
when they use
mean,
them. It's yeah, it's bad.
yeah. I mean, I'd like to ask you if you read the book
I did
and
not.
you. Oh, you didn't?
No, I did not read the book. I only watched the Netflix series, so I only have the Netflix series.
Okay.
And so I did a
I've heard that the books were much better, but
I have to believe it.
Also heard that the third generation of books sucked balls.
I've so I know from my own personal experience the Netflix series, whatever the source material, and I had when I put I put a stream out about this,
Mhm.
what a really highly viewed stream at the time, I think, just because of the algorithm. I called it
Right.
Three Body Problems. And I just went through my list of like, this doesn't make sense. People were like, oh, well, if you read the book, and like, no, I'm not talking about the book. I'm just looking at this series as it's presented in the series. I'm sure the books are probably much better or explain things more, but this adaptation, and I think the adaptation was done by the same guys that did Game of Thrones, and we saw
Yes, those
how well they
assholes.
adapted stuff. Yeah, it's yeah,
Fuck's
it's
sake.
absolutely, yeah. The Netflix series is convoluted, nonsensical garbage. Now, the books might be good, or the
As
first
far as
couple
I have
books.
heard,
Yeah.
the main person is much more likable in the books.
Yeah. No, the
But
main, yeah.
I haven't read it, so it's like
Yeah. No,
I can't.
the characters in the Netflix series are, I mean, it's like you want me to root for these obnoxious jerkwads? Why? I mean,
And
it's not, yeah.
there's so many things that you're like, what?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Maybe I missed something, but okay, so they're just gonna cut a guy's head off and shoot him at the aliens, and that's going to solve something. You remember that?
No, I remember. I was there. I remember sitting through that notion
Was that a
about.
logical thing?
Well,
Did I miss something?
no, you didn't miss something. It was a how I will attempt in brief to explain the logic of this.
Okay.
They selected, at least as far as the story established, one of the smartest people on the planet who just happened to already be terminally ill. And so he had nothing really to live for anyway. And so in order to send a ambassador, more or less, or a living probe after a kind, to intercept the invasion fleet before they showed up, both to either try to negotiate and or have some notion of what was going on and figure out a way to stunt their progress or something. They were going to send his whole body in a sort of stasis because they understood the aliens had the ability to likely cure and or resurrect him, except they miscalculated not only their budget, but also the materials they had available and the speed of the. Anyway, so they figure we can't send the whole body, so it'll go faster, and we can only intercept them in time if we send just the head. But of course, the aliens have the technology to effectively create a new body for them. So we just know that they will do that for some reason. And again, I'm reaching back, guys. If anybody in the chat is more familiar with the Netflix series and the details therein, not the books, I can't speak for those, and I'm just forgetting something, apologies. But this is the logic that I was given. And so they take a Hail Mary, all eggs in one basket attempt to send this probe / ambassador / spy to the invasion fleet, and they miscalculate, and it leads into sequel bait. It's just. And the character that they send there, his only purpose throughout the entire show is to be sad, be heartbroken, and then die. That's it. Every scene that he is in up to that point is just him being sad, heartbroken. He didn't tell the girl that he loves her, even though he has every opportunity to do so throughout the course of the show, and just be sad and then die.
Well, he does, kind of, because he
sort at the very last second.
$40 billion asteroid or whatever.
Oh, that was for no reason.
Like, okay. And she's like, oh my God. I guess that means nothing.
It's so the whole thing.
She doesn't get it.
No, it's just, that show was hard to watch. That was another one of those. There are one of the things that irritates me the most about modern writing is set piece events of emotion or consequence that are not earned by prior events or better writing. Where it's like I'm supposed to be having the. You ever see Super 8, the J.J. Abrams Spielberg-ish movie? So at the end of at the end of Super 8, there's this big emotional moment between the kind of distant / quasi-abusive father and his son and everything. And it's, oh my God, it's so emotional and everything else, except nothing in the movie prior to that spent any meaningful time establishing that as a major plot point. So by the time that you arrive at it near the end of the movie, it is completely weightless and empty. And I compare that with
that makes sense for J.J. Abrams.
Yeah. And then I compare that to one of my favorite movies, speaking of sci-fi, The Iron Giant, where the end of The Iron Giant, no matter how many times I watch it, I cry. I'm willing to admit I cried the ending of that movie because it earns it, because it works up to that point, and there's just something about, even in the cheesiest film, and
you mean
Iron
that
Giant
one from 2000s, right?
Yeah, this is the Brad Bird animated thing. Vin Diesel's the voice of the Iron Giant, and you got Harry Connick Jr. in there as one of the characters. Excellent animated film. It's still perfect. Great sci-fi, moral kids. It's one of those. It really is a throwback to like good old fashioned kids family movies with an edge to it. It didn't shy away from being a little bit, bonk you on the head with some reality, because not everything has to be all like safety zones and kind language all the time.
Right.
But
Yeah, I mean, I used to go to NAB shows with the guy who edited that movie.
Okay, cool. Yeah, one of
Do
my
you know
favorite
what
movies.
NAB is?
National Association of Bros.
Broadcasters.
Broadcasters. Okay. I was close
And yes, you
ish.
were.
I came in syllable sense pretty close.
Um, Usually, they have shows all over the world, and um, they used to invite me to have speeches in all these shows. We were all over
Hmm.
the world, and for some reason, I ended up with that guy who did the Iron Giant.
Nice.
So yeah,
Yeah, I've only intersected with like celebrities a couple of times. I once saw Frankie Avalon at the airport when I was very young,
hmm
and when I went on a student trip to New York City, we were walking by the NBC studios, and this is back in '92 or '93. And we're walking by NBC studios, and who should walk out of NBC studios but O.J. Simpson? And this is before, and so I was like, oh my god, I recognized him because I'd seen TV commercials and other things before. I knew who he was, but this was before he became super famous. So
right.
other than that, other minor celebrities I've run into before, like people that nobody else here would ever heard of before and kind of things. But yeah, or like at a comic book convention. Back when a comic book convention was just a bunch of weird guys with tables and comic books on, without it all being like all showy and like popular. I'm a nerd from the days, guys, before it was popular to like comic books where you were like an outcast and you go to a comic book convention and just be a bunch of fold out tables and a bunch of weird guys. And I got Eric Larson from Spider-Man to sign my Spider-Man 350 issue.
Oh, okay.
For that.
So who's the most famous person you've ever met?
The most famous person I've ever met. Like shook hands, said hi or something.
Your choice.
Oh God. Um Good gravy. Well, I did get to meet Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
He did a concert in my town when I was young, and I got to say hi to him as we were exiting the thing, and he shook my hand. Other than that, I am challenged to think of someone either more famous or relevant that I've actually interacted with on a personal level.
Right.
I mean, I've had minor interactions with famous people, or that I consider famous. Like I said before, Chuck Dixon, being able to talk, throw a question at him before, and I know I do not mean to continue on here, but like interacting with you, interacting with Blair White at one point, a whole bunch of
Oh,
other
come on.
people. No, is it? See, here's
You're
the thing.
not
Like I was
famous.
no, like I was talking about, like I said before, there's a mentality in my mind. Like I said, Robert Stack. Right? I watch Robert Stack on Unsolved Mysteries. I never will talk to him. When I was watching your stuff, I was watching it on my TV through the YouTube app on my Xbox 360. So as far as my sort of like rodent brain is concerned, you are a TV personality,
Okay.
which is weird to say. And so the opportunity to talk to you, or like I said, Blair White, or even at the time, Mundane Matt. It's like, oh my gosh, these people that I was just a viewer. I was just somebody who was in the audience before, and now I'm actually having a conversation with them. This is an alien experience to me, coming from an era where personalities were untouchable, unreachable, and now it's commonplace for a lot of people, but it still blows me away every time it happens. So
Well, all right.
yeah. I mean, and I have to kind of fulfill a statement in the chat there where someone said, "You suck, Scribe," and I said, "Only if you ask nicely." And so, if I'm going to suck up to anybody, If I'm going to
What
suck up to
kind of
anybody, I might as well suck up to somebody that I admire. So there you go.
what kind of suckhead was that?
I don't know. I don't know, but it's one of those things. It's like, oh, somebody says something mean to me on the internet. Like, well, I tell you what, there should be classes for people to build up a spine for textual insults on the internet. Because man, I tell you what, when I get that feeling, I need some textual healing, and people need to learn that ability more so, especially celebrities. Like, somebody said something mean to me on Twitter, and it makes me feel like, oh, get out of life. Go away. I've been operating since IRC days. Remember IRC, ICQ, people being mean to each other and snarking at each other? Get out of life.
Well, you remember, obviously, you've heard of this. The witch girl.
Oh, Cynthia Erivo.
I
Yes,
have no idea
from Wicked.
Yes, Wicked. I
Yes,
have no idea who she is.
Oh yeah, no. On Midnight's Edge, we've talked about it at length.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yes.
For some reason, apparently this person thinks she's very famous. I have never heard of her before.
Yeah, outside of Broadway, she wasn't really known by anybody for anything. But as soon as this is another one of those instances where somebody is coming into a role, and instead of saying, wow, I get to play this character, no, this is now me representing an entire demographic, and I am a symbol, and I am this, and I am that, instead of like, I need to play this character. I'm not playing myself. And she can't separate those two because she's of that school of I am a figure. I'm a sign. I'm a symbol.
Yeah.
Or in her own, of course, that's just a shield to sort of justify her own egotism and narcissism. But that's how it works.
That is so sad, right?
I had this is one of the sort of like the paradoxes of what we've been watching, you and I, amongst others, for the last like 8 or 9 years or so, is that I can't stand people who enter into that mindset of I am here to represent, or my feelings are this, or my identity is that. At the same time, I can't help but have a certain level of sympathy because more likely than not, they're simply a victim of manipulative adults over the last 10 years or so or more in education, in media, and elsewise, who have crafted them into thinking that this is the way you're supposed to operate. Right. And so I can't hold them to account for what they've been subjected to, but at a certain point, you're an adult. You're no longer reasonably allowed to claim victimhood towards somebody else's machinations, and you have to make up your own mind. And if this is the mind that you've made up to operate under, then I'm gonna hold you to account for it. Yeah. It's trying to do away with bad ideas as best as you can. So anyway,
I mean, that was so silly.
Yeah, the whole poster thing and her.
Yeah, the poster thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to imagine that, it's like, and something that was
you're so fucking retarded that you can't understand that people are gonna make just some stuff to make themselves happy.
It wasn't even, and this is the thing, what she was railing on about wasn't even some kind of trolling bit or meme. It was a fan just photoshopping the movie poster to more resemble the playbill from the original production. It wasn't it wasn't a slight on her. It wasn't some kind of like, oh, I'm going to replace your face with Kermit the Frog or something. Like, hello, Kermit the Frog here. No, it was just, I'm going to, as a fan, do a piece of fan art. But she took it to the beyond reason nth degree offense and then said, this is erasing me. How dare you do this? Like, what is wrong?
How dare you?
I never. Or how, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Greta, how dare you? You've destroyed my childhood. Oh. You've erased my identity. My eyes are the windows to my soul, and your photoshopping has erased my very being.
Oh my god.
How dare you? No.
Yeah.
Oh well. Someday we'll have movie stars again, and like people who exemplify an idea without having to ruin the reality for us by telling us what they think on Twitter. Someday.
Someday. Wouldn't that be
Someday my
great?
prince will come. Oh,
No, but that would be great. Like if they
yeah.
could just shut the fuck up. I do not care what Brad Pitt thinks about the election.
Yeah.
I do
I
not care.
yeah, I don't care either. The fact that people see it's one of those things where like I don't want to say that celebrities shouldn't be allowed to speak their minds or something. It's like no, by all means speak your minds, freedom of speech to the nth degree. But at the same time, though, if given your role in life and the profession you're in, having a certain insulatory distance between the real you and the avatar of you I'm supposed to imagine when you take on these different roles is probably a healthy thing to have
Yes.
just for your own success and also for the range of your art. I'm never nearly as impressed with actors who are just themselves in a movie versus like somebody like Gary Oldman who like is a chameleon role to role,
Hmm.
and I can
Hmm.
sometimes not tell that he's there versus Will Smith just being Will Smith every single time. There's there's something I can give to that for those actors that are in on the joke, so to speak, like Sylvester Stallone in an action movie or something.
Right.
But someone who wants to be taken seriously as an actor, and yet they're the same person in every single movie they're in. They take no effort to change their hairstyle or like Christian Bale going from The Machinist, where he's practically a skeleton, to within a year going to Batman Begins, where he's like a roided out superhero. That's an actor I can respect. Somebody who puts
Right.
themselves in their role or something, but like Will Smith shows up to set and like, okay, now I'm gonna be this guy. Like, no, come on. Come on. Anyway, I could go on, but we're so off the topic of sci-fi now. I don't even know. Have we run out of gas? You sound like you're about 2 steps away from going to sleep.
No, no,
Oh,
no.
okay.
Um, I'm just thinking.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about like um what's his name? Christian Bale, like you said.
Christian Bale? Yeah, Christian Bale, yeah.
Right. If he was uh if he was to be that really tiny dude from the machinist,
Mm-hmm.
um I mean it's just crazy to me that he could be the same guy that is the Batman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the amount
Right?
of dedication to the role that he put into literally, I mean, and if you guys haven't seen The Machinist, I recommend it, but just to see the utter physical transformation, not a special effect. Like he starved himself to fit the role and literally embody, without giving too much away, the mentality and the psychology of the character given the circumstances. And
Yes.
then, like I say, if you look at the timeline of things, and he's talked about this in interviews, to go from wrapping up The Machinist and then immediately having to go weight train and buff up and everything else to go into bat, it's two different human beings. It's just concentration camp victim to Arnold Schwarzenegger inside of a year. It's crazy, but all for the sake of the role, both losing the weight for one role and then buffing out to become a superhero in the next one.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
it's nuts.
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's not just a dye job for your hair, or or putting on a few pounds to look like you're a dad bod or something. It is an
No.
utter dedication to it and
I
transformation.
mean,
It's great.
he was so skinny.
Yeah,
It was crazy.
he was. I what he was like at 110 pounds or something like that when at that point, and but he looks like he weighs about 7. I mean, he's just a skin sack of bones. It's God. It makes you
Yeah.
uncomfortable just looking at him, and that's part of the sort of psychological horror of the whole movie, amongst all the other stuff going on. But
I love the murder scenes in that one where he's just like every time he murders someone's he's just like, oh, you have a flashlight. Cut. Now
yeah,
I have a flashlight.
mm-hmm.
Remember that?
I think so. Was that The Machinist? Are we stuck?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's been a while since I've seen it, so I might be not
As
remembering
far as I
seeing it.
remember, they just cut like, okay, here's the thing that I want, and then cut, and then he has it. Like, oh, we get it. We
Oh yeah,
get what
yeah.
happened
I
in
always
between there.
enjoy movies that imply more than they show. Show
Yeah.
not tell, so to speak. I remember this is kind of sci-fi, I suppose. The remake of Village of the Damned, John Carpenter.
Mhm.
I remember that is one of the least gory John Carpenter movies because nearly all of the terrible things happen either off camera are implied only by sound or shadow. And and leaving it to your imagination is more horrifying than if I actually saw all the Kiro soup or Kiro blood or whatever they put out there. Kiro syrup, that's what I meant.
Wait, John Carpenter?
Yeah, the remake of Village of the Damned with Christopher Reeve. John Carpenter directed that one. That was
Ooh,
in
that's one of
the
that's
mid '90s, something like that.
that's one
It's
of
not
his
very. It's
bad.
not very. It's not talked about much, which is kind of
That's one of his bad
bizarre.
movies. Probably.
I liked it because it was so low key, but yeah, it's not one of his best. It's not one of his best, certainly.
I
The
mean,
Thing,
I I think yeah, exactly. The Thing. Holy fuck! I think that's
In the Mouth of
one of
Madness.
the
I still love In the
one
Mouth
of
of
the
Madness.
best movies ever made.
Yes,
Um, Starman,
Starman was good. Yeah.
awesome, awesome movie.
Obviously, Halloween.
Yes, sure, but I think Halloween is more of a catalyst. I'm not
Yes,
super into it.
Halloween is better known as the inspiration of a genre rather than a perfect movie in and of itself. But
Yes,
it holds that place as such a monumental and inspirational movie for so many things. It does deserve its place, but in comparison to other films of similar like, I still think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the greatest slasher movie ever made. Still to this day, even though it was so old now and everything, I still think it's the best. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street. I love Nightmare on Elm Street. Don't get me wrong, but it is a at best close second to Saw because the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is just great. Love it.
probably.
Let's see. Psycho 2016. Mouth of Madness was so good, but not true to H.P. Lovecraft. Well, In the Mouth of Madness was a tribute not just to H.P. Lovecraft, but also to Stephen King and that whole sort of genre-ish of authors and such. There's a lot of stuff going on there. It is one of the more Lovecraftian movies out there. And it's considered
Okay.
by Carpenter to be the third of his Apocalypse trilogy, the first being The Thing, and then Prince of Darkness, and then Mouth of Madness. There are few movies out there that truly, really capture H.P. Lovecraft in a way that I think they should. Where it's like, it's because Lovecraft is so difficult to translate to film in the first place. There's only a couple of his stories that could, and I've been waiting for years, it'll probably never happen, for Guillermo del Toro to do At the Mountains of Madness. He's been wanting to do that for decades now and still hasn't happened.
Right.
But anyway, that's a whole other thing. I know way too much about Lovecraft too. Which is a kind of sci-fi. It was a sci-fi in and of itself. A lot of sci-fi stuff in there for the 20s with brains in jars and the fungi from Yuggoth and alien invaders from Dark Cosmos and everything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess The Thing was really the movie that sort of took that to a new level.
As far as like Lovecraftian stuff.
Well, it takes so many things. It's not just Lovecraftian. It's all that kind of existential horror and mistrust and
Yeah,
you know,
paranoia. What does it mean to be human? Who can you trust?
yeah.
A creature that has no motivation other than to survive, and what does that mean? And oh yeah, everything in that movie is just
And I
even yeah.
love the ending.
Yeah, the ambiguous downbeat ending. This is the thing that I always, no pun intended, that I always wish they hadn't done to it's a similar movie in tone, at least, the 1956 Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where the original ending was just him out on that freeway, just yelling "You're next, you're next." Cut to black. Completely dour, downbeat ending. Who knows what's going to happen next? The whole world's doomed. Instead, they after the fact did reshoots and tacked on this book ending, happy ending kind of thing. And I just wish they hadn't done that. I really appreciate movies that don't leave you happy, that set everything up and leave it like gloom, doom, and who knows what's going to happen next kind of thing. The Thing did that
Yeah,
perfectly.
but the thing is, it doesn't have to be doom. We don't know.
Yeah,
That's
well,
the
yeah,
beauty of
ambiguity,
it.
right, right. It lets your imagination run wild with like, well,
They
is he? Isn't
they're
he? Are
just.
they
I
both?
mean, they're just sitting there, and they're like, um, "Well, I guess we'll just sit here and wait
Yeah,
for a while."
wait for him,
That's
see what
basically
happens.
what he says, as far as I can remember, right?
Yeah.
He just
Yeah, and from I mean, if Childs is human, from his perspective, he hasn't seen McCready in long enough that he doesn't know if he's real. And from
yeah,
McCready's perspective, obviously Childs has been gone long enough that he might not be real either. So
they don't know. They don't
yep,
know.
they
And
don't
so
know.
we'll sit here
I saw a
and
I
see.
saw a video that spent like an hour and a half trying to convince me that McCready was a thing the entire time, saying, "Look at this in the movie and this." Then I'm like, ah. But I love the
That
theory crafting. I love the theory crafting. It's great.
yeah, I mean, sure. But I don't think so.
No, I don't. I don't think so either. I no. I think child is probably a thing, but we don't know. Who knows? It's
Well,
not necessarily
we
said.
don't know.
Hard to say. There's a whole bunch of like symbolic signals in there that
I mean, there is also a bunch of misdirection from um, uh, the director, right?
yes. Oh sure. Oh yeah.
He said that he always put point lights in the eyes for people that were human,
Mm-hmm.
and then he stopped doing it.
Yeah. Well, the one that I always liked that sort of gave an answer, if there was an answer to be indicated, at the beginning of the movie when McCready is playing his chess game on the
Mm,
computer, and he reaches a point where the chess game, in his opinion, has cheated and sort of caught him in a trapped him. He solves this problem by pouring his Jim Beam into the computer and frying it out.
right.
And so at the very end of the movie, he's facing Childs and he hands him the bottle of Jim Beam and takes a drink. And then I'm just kind of like, okay, I I suppose that could be, checkmate right there if Childs is a thing. So possible. It's symbology. You mean symbolism.
No, but that could be interpreted in another way as well.
Mm,
You could say that um, it's foreshadowing. He's still the same person, but
hmm
the chess match is a foreshadowing thing that is telling us that that's the way he solves problems. He blows shit up,
Right. Yeah.
right?
No, it's a Gordian knot kind of thing. Yeah.
So
Who knows? But that's the whole thing. It's ambiguous. It doesn't tell you an answer. Now, if you read the comic books that continue the story afterwards, they give you the answer, but that's a whole other. That's a whole other thing.
no, no, there is no
Ah,
answer. There
yeah,
is no answer,
I know,
and
I know,
he
I know,
said that.
I know, I know. I have a copy. I have a first edition copy of the novelization of the Thing movie, not the Who Goes There story from the original author, but the novelization. It's all like It's like that little tiny little kind of paperback from the 80s, and all the edges of the paper kind of yellowed now and everything, but it's in great condition.
Right.
It's important in my collection.
Right.
Yep.
But
But
like I said, there should not be an answer.
no, there shouldn't be an answer. I
Is
also have the
that
Thing board game, by the way. If you guys didn't know about the Thing board game,
what?
yeah. I have the Thing board game.
Okay.
Yeah, they made a the limited edition board game Kickstarter thing a few years ago. I would be surprised if you can find it anymore. I still have it. I'm a bit of a I have a comic book collection out the yin yang, and I have some other nerdery in my collection too, and that's one of them.
How are you with Star Trek?
As far as collectibles,
Yeah.
I have nothing of note really.
Uh,
Yeah, I watch the TV shows. I would not claim to be a Trekkie. That I would not try to place myself in that on that pedestal. I obviously I know lots of trivia, but not to the point where I'm like owning a phaser or an outfit or go to conventions or anything.
right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saw that they had like you could buy uh the Star Trek from the original motion picture, um, that ship,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like huge. It was like
Sure.
5 feet long or something.
Yeah. There's still
You-
an amazing fan base for good old Trek, and not so much the new
right.
crap. Yeah, and it's still even to this day, it's amazing how strongly that. I mean, I'm actually kind of envious of the Trek fan base that's been able to thrive and still enjoy it despite the nonsense that's been put out there. Because like Star Wars has pretty much been destroyed for me. I just
Yeah.
can't even get excited about even old stuff anymore because happiness is having something to look forward to. And when you hear, oh, they're going to make some new Star Wars, and then it comes out and it sucks, and then more comes out and it still sucks, and there's nothing to be excited about anymore. There's nothing to speculate about before except how bad it's going to be. It completely removes the joy from the entire thing.
But then some guy comes out with, well, we're just going to make the exact starship from Star Trek the motion picture,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And then somebody buys
And
it.
they made that, and it was like huge. It
Yeah.
was as big as half a car. Like Jesus Christ.
Well,
Uh,
and in the unification little video that comes out, like every Star Trek fan on the planet was just like, this 7 minute thing is better than anything that CBS Paramount has put out in the last 15 years as far as a
yeah.
tribute to Star Trek. And it's just like, this is what happens when you put a franchise or bits of it in the hands of people that actually care. Heaven forfend. Anyway, I could go on, but I'm just a little bit sour.
No, but that was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kick myself because I didn't hit the fucking buy button.
Oh, on the Star Trek ship?
Yeah, like that huge motherfucking
How
ship.
much was it?
I think it was like $1,000 or something.
Wow.
So it wasn't cheap, but you know,
Hmm. What if you were a officer on the Starship Enterprise, what
hmm
section would you be serving in? Command, science, engineering? What do you think?
hmm.
Given your personal predilections and talents, where do you think you would have ended up?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm thinking. I mean, obviously, anyone who gets asked this question is going to be like, "I would be in command of the Starship Enterprise," but I'm trying to be a little bit more, um, trying to think a little bit deeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I would probably be like, I think I would be fairly high up, but I
Mm-hmm.
would be in charge of science. So I'd be like
See,
a
I figured you would be.
science director or something, whatever
Yeah,
they
chief
call.
science officer.
Yeah, science officer, right?
Yeah, I think I figured that's where you'd end up. given
Yeah.
your
What about
passion
you?
for space travel. Oh, if I was on Star Trek, oh my God.
I'll be in charge.
No, I would not be an in charge guy. Um, gosh, I feel like just as far as my actual like what kind of could contribute to the Starship Enterprise ended up in some kind of like data processing center, something very boring or whatever. But um,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not so scientifically inclined. I belong in science or engineering. I don't know that I actually have that much purpose on a starship. Honestly, I'd probably be back on Earth doing some menial everyday job or something, and just kind of like occasionally getting on a shuttlecraft to bus it to work or something. I'd be a nobody.
You'd be that guy that was so fucking irritated to get stuck out in the Delta Quadrant with the
You
Voyager.
know, yeah, exactly. Like the last, like, why am I here? I got nothing to do. Actually, yeah, that'd be my like my hero's journey is like end up on like on the I was just on Voyager just for a quick, I was on here just to get transported to another planet. I got stuck in the Delta Quadrant. Now I got to find something I got to do. Oh man, like what are you good at? I don't know. Put me in 10 forward, I guess. I can entertain people or try to learn how to mix drinks. Maybe I'll work with Neelix. What am I supposed to do? I don't
Yeah,
know.
they don't even have 10 forward. They have like a
I know. Whatever it's called, the
little
lounge or the kitchen, the
they
cafeteria.
they they do have Neelix's bar or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably be like helping Neelix wash dishes or something until I had my Barclays hero moment and was able to find my place in the world. Actually, I might become one of those sidewise guys that ends up becoming a Borg, and then gets like shot by my own people on the ship after I get taken over. Yeah, I'm at least I'm background extra red shirt territory. I figure all things considered.
Yeah. I mean, we'd all like to imagine ourselves being Picard or whatever, but
Uh I've
obviously that wouldn't happen.
I've always in the stories that I've read or in the like role playing games I've been in, I've always appreciated starting from nothing and finding your own path or building yourself up to something. So I don't know what I'd end up. I'd start out on the Starship Enterprise as just some like cargo hauler in the storage bay or something, and then something would happen or a circumstance would put me to the test, and I'd have to like work my way up from like Nog, like in DS9. Nog is just
Oh yeah, I
yeah,
mean
not yeah,
that is a good thing. Or I would just like to be stationed next to Benjamin Sisko because
sure.
holy fuck, then you know that this guy's gonna end up being a god.
Yeah, well, literally a prophet of the. Oh my god! I remember first watching that show, and I thought, okay, they've already made him a deity in the first two episodes. Where can he go from here? And then, of course, by pale moonlight, he's practically the devil. So
Well, then, yeah, exactly. He went from a god to the devil to an actual god.
yeah. Oh man.
Oh my
It's
god, that was. Do you remember the one where they were in the 50s?
yes, where yeah, he's they're
Uh,
the sci-fi writer and everything. Benny something or other, Benny Cisco, and
Benny,
then
yeah, Benny,
or whatever he was.
write the story, brother Benny.
Yeah, and everybody was a different role. It was interesting seeing everybody out of makeup. Like
Yes,
Gold Ducat, not with his makeup on, and just like a detective or whatever he was, and all that. Yeah, that was cool.
that was an awesome episode.
Yeah,
I hope that one won some fucking
I
medal or something.
feel like it got some kind of Saturn Award or some kind of something or other. I feel like that episode got some recognition in the sci-fi community somehow. Something
Yeah, I
like that.
hope so. It was
Probably
awesome,
good.
and then at the end when Cisco comes back and he's
Yeah,
been beaten up and everyone's been shitting on him and he just loses it.
yeah.
That is an amazing scene.
It's a very bizarre episode because it's not very clear. Is this something that actually happened in the past? Is it some kind of vision? Is it, yeah? Speaking of keeping things ambiguous, they kept that one
Yeah.
fairly ambiguous too, which is fine. Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
Let's see.
And I don't know. I think that was a good thing.
Oh yeah, no, I am perfectly fine because there's some things that you don't need to try to. Not everything has to fit perfectly into the timeline, and you can just kind of like doing a side. And it was really more a social commentary episode. It was a message episode that could exist all by itself without having to be tied up with other plot lines. So
Right.
it was technically a filler episode, but it was a good filler episode.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
It,
And
it was
it wasn't another time travel trope thing. At least they avoided that nonsense. Or
yeah. I
the only
mean,
the only time they did that was Trouble with Tribbles and all that.
Well, Trouble with Tribbles wasn't a filler episode. That was actually an episode that they did to celebrate the 50th anniversary.
Right, right. Yeah, true. Okay. And they fit everybody in. The costumes, oh man.
I
Oh
mean,
boy.
I don't know if you knew that, but that was supposed to be campy and everything.
Oh yeah, no, I like that. I'm not saying I'm not saying it was a bad episode. It's just like the Deep Space Nine did not often do time travel stuff, and when they did do it, I think the only time I remember them doing it is that particular episode. And it was its own thing, which was perfectly fine. It wasn't trying to change history or
Yeah,
go back
it
to the
wasn't
Nazis or
really a
something.
time travel episode. It was just sort of a weird experimental episode.
Yeah, and seeing Dax in a beehive in a skirt was kind of nice too.
Yeah, Dax was probably the nicest one there.
Yeah. So
Kira
friendly.
wasn't too bad too.
Yeah, Kira had that nice edge to her. That was something about wanting to tame that beast. And of course, I never really understood why. I mean, he eventually started calling himself Alexander Siddig, but as soon as this first episode dropped, it was like Siddig El Fadil as Dr. Bashir, and I thought, why would you change your name? Like, anyway,
maybe that episode explains why.
Could be. Who knows?
I mean, seriously.
But seeing O'Brien standing there with all the other engineering guys and Mr. Scott, that was so cool. Oh, that was so great. And then of course the whole, oh man, and they didn't even end up answering in this until Enterprise, where they're sitting there in the bar and Worf's there, and they're all looking over at the Klingons, and they're looking back and forth between them, and Worf are like, how, what? Because the Klingons of the old days, they didn't have like the ridge on their heads or look like that. And Worf is just like, we do not discuss it with outsiders. And it's like, what the hell does that mean? And of course, it wasn't until Enterprise where they finally came up with an answer for that. And it was just like, seemed a little shoehorny, but
I'm not sure I like that though.
Yeah, I didn't either. I didn't like that they made some convoluted explanation for it.
It seems like, okay, you changed the fucking makeup. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Do we really need to talk about that?
Well, DS9 decided not to, so they didn't.
I mean, that happened between the original series and Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Right.
Suddenly, the Klingons looked completely different, and as long as people could accept it, it's fine. The problem happened in what the fuck is it called?
Worf.
Sorry?
Discovery. Discovery,
no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or no, you mean Enterprise. Enterprise is where they tried to answer the question.
No. I was fine with the Enterprise. It's like, okay, whatever. Okay. But Discovery, then the Klingons looked like they're like some
Yeah,
completely different.
lizard fucking things. Yeah, they
Yeah,
didn't even
some
look like.
sort of,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly, like some lizard creatures. Like,
yeah.
the
You
fuck is
can even
happening?
imagine them as being even tangentially related to the Klingons as we know them. They're just complete monsters now. They're like
Yeah, they
alien
look like
vampire ghoul things.
monsters. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
monsters.
There's nothing to
Exactly.
relate to there. Like Klingons in the original series were supposed to be kind of like the Russians, and then by the time you get to TNG, I don't think there was like a modern day analog to them. I guess they're supposed. I guess it was still kind of the Cold War then,
Well,
maybe. So
I think they still were Russians. It's just that,
yeah,
like, oh, now they're our friends, right?
or
Because
there's yeah,
Russians have become our friends, and we
Glasnost.
did exactly glasnost.
Yeah,
Uh, so uh, I think that's what it was. Um, but now we have these Klingons that look like absolute fucking monsters.
yeah,
Like,
and they're not even
holy
relatable. I
fuck.
mean, the Klingons are at least still a civilization. They were humanoid. You could try to find some sort of common
Yeah, and
ground. Now
remember
you
the
now,
language, right? Remember
oh
the
yeah,
language?
kapla, yeah, yeah, like the whole new language, yeah, based on
And then you hear the new one. It's like hoof, poof, poof, poof,
yeah,
hooey, hoo, hoo, hoo.
woo,
What?
ha, woo, ha. Yeah.
Holy shit, bro! What are you talking about?
I don't know. Discovery should be just like ejected, disregarded, put into the dustbin of history, doesn't count, whatever, turned into legends like
And
Star Wars and everything. Just
fortunately, it has been canceled.
yes, thankfully, I suppose. But it all
And
depends on what they just decide to do next with it, with the franchise. I mean, if they just rehash some more
yeah,
bullshit and
yeah,
head to
of course.
Kurtzman, it's going to be garbage again.
Well, I mean, obviously it is. He's been handed back control, and
God, that guy is
now
just like a tick that buries its head and you can't get it out, isn't it? Jesus.
he is, and now
Uh,
he's going to do something called Starfleet Academy.
oh, that's right. I heard. Yes, we talked about that on Midnight City. Yeah.
Okay, and this is the point where I wish you knew Star Gate Law,
Hmm.
but you don't, right?
No, I don't.
Uh, they made in Stargate. They made Stargate episode 200. It was a like a, hey, it's a 200th episode, blah blah blah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in that episode, um, they make fun of themselves, right?
Okay.
And they have like, oh my god, we're there's this guy, there's this movie guy, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna come up with a story, and like, okay, so we're gonna we're gonna try to come up with an interesting Stargate story, and they come up with all this idiotic stuff. Like one story is that they're dummies from Team America. You remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah. The Thunderbird puppets. Yeah.
Yeah, Thunderbird puppets. That's one episode that they come up with in story, right?
Right.
And then they come up with like, oh, how about if everyone is really young and they're just sort of going to college, and it's the exact same thing that they're going to do now for Starfleet Academy. And
Right.
he's like, yeah, and he's like, yeah, okay, and then they make like for all these things they make like a 10-second vignette
Sure.
uh, when they're talking about it. So it's like, oh, um, and everyone's like young and sexy, and they're like 14, not 14, but 18 years old or whatever, like really, really young people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
It's like a CW show at that point.
exactly. And it's oh my god, this is exactly what they're going to do with Starfleet Academy. And the whole episode is like there's these 18-year-old guys and girls that are like, oh my God, we're doing this shit and blah, blah, blah. And oh, what's happening? Oh, I'm pregnant. And that's basically the
Yeah,
end point.
I can't wait for Degrassi Junior High Starfleet style.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody out there remembers Degrassi Junior High or Degrassi High or whatever? Yeah, that's old Canadian teen drama show. That's how
Yeah.
old I am. Boy, oh boy, I remember that stuff. Hey, Columba. Well,
Hi,
I hate to do this, but I am reaching my limit as far as consciousness is concerned. My regular day job has me up at 4 a.m. every morning, and my body doesn't know it's not a weekday.
That's the way it is, man.
Yeah, so I think I might have to wind down here
When,
pretty quick.
whenever you need to go, that's when we go. Because I'm very happy to have you here.
Well, I can't tell you how happy I am to have the chance to chat with you and nerd out for a while and
Yeah,
say hi to
that's
everybody in chat. And it's a rare honor. I know you don't want to get too much hero worship here, but like I say, I'm big fan and glad that you're making videos again or thinking about getting back into the old saddle as you're able.
yeah,
And
yeah,
looking
yeah.
forward to it.
I'm so happy that you enjoy my stuff, man. It really feels weird when people say things like that, but
Mm-hmm. Well,
um,
I mean, not to belabor it, but I've over the last several years, I've had a similar experience where people have said things like, "Oh, you inspired me to do this," or "I started my own channel," or something else, and I'm sitting back going like, "You did that. I'm glad you had me as an excuse, I guess, but no, you take all the credit you need for that, because I'm happy to be there, but I can honestly say that between you and Sargon and a guy that doesn't do it anymore, Skeptor, and Hagbard Celine, some of the YouTubers I watched before I started my channel, you directly inspired me to give it a shot, and I want to thank you for that.
no, I mean, holy shit. I only did it because I wanted to do the same thing as some other guys that I
Mm-hmm.
watched. So it's the exact same thing for
Yeah.
me.
Chain of custody.
Yes, yes, indeed. So don't take it too seriously.
No, never take it too seriously. But credit where credit is due.
No, I appreciate it, man.
Well, but yeah, no, it's been great talking to you. I love talking sci-fi. I wouldn't mind coming on and talking about whatever else you want to talk about some other time too. I
Yeah,
I like these.
yeah,
Don't get to usually do just sort of stream of consciousness things. Usually there's an agenda or a schedule or specific stories to cover. And while I enjoy that too, sometimes just letting loose and just seeing where the thoughts take you is always really nice.
Well, I mean, today the missus was busy, and
Mm-hmm.
I was just bored, so I asked you, and it was
That's
such
exactly
a great,
that's exactly
great
how
pleasure.
my little career with Ranting Monkey started. He asked me one time, "Hey, how do you do a live stream?" And I showed him how to do a live stream. And then every day thereafter, he says, "Hey, I'm bored. You want to stream?" Like, oh, sure. And then it turned into a 4-year talk show. It's just one of those things. It's one of those things.
Yeah,
But
but at least this time it was a little bit more dignified because I
yeah,
I
well,
I
we're
really
both wearing
wanted
suits, so there you
I
go.
really wanted to talk to you.
Well, I
Uh,
appreciate that. Well, I'm flattered. Well, thank you. And I like the way that you talk. I like the way you talk. Mm-hmm. I like the way you talk. There was a sling blade. That's what it was. Mm-hmm.
oh yeah.
But yes, everybody. Hope you had a good time, and be sure to check out Undoom's new video breaking down
Oh
his
yeah. If you haven't
post
seen my
mortem.
new
Yeah.
video, you have to go check out my new video.
Mm-hmm.
It is the definitive postmortem on Kamala Harris's presidential campaign.
Mm-hmm.
It will explain everything and all the different things why she lost, basically.
Yeah, covered as far as I'm concerned, chapter and verse of all the elements that led to the downfall, and it's something that's going to be continued to be talked about. And I'm like I say, I'm waiting for more of the financial reports to come out on the end all be all of how that went down. So $1 billion disappearing, man. If that was not just some kind of money laundering scheme at the end of the day, oh
yeah.
boy. But
Yeah,
anywho,
we don't know all about that yet, but we'll see.
it'll happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for showing up. I really appreciate it. I was always, I love talking sci-fi. So
yeah, I'm here for it.
I'm gonna invite you again.
I appreciate
Of
it. Thank
course.
you.
All right.
Yep, everybody, I'll see you tomorrow morning for the Sunday show. We'll go over some news stuff of the week and all that good stuff.
All right. You got everything plugged?
I still have most of my hair. Thank you very much. You're the bald one.
No, I was thinking of you to plug something. You know.
Oh, that kind of plug. Yeah. So, tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on my channel, the Sunday stream, where I go over weird and quirky news of the week. And then Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, TED Excellence, where I go over interesting or potentially interesting TEDx and TED Talks with TEDx Bingo for all sorts of entertainment and education. I think I found a cherry item for next Thursday that deals with someone, once again, trying to justify to me why DEI is a good thing. I always love those, so I might do that one next week.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be really weirdly interesting.
Yeah, that entire industry is going to be very fun to watch over the next 4 years to see how they try to finagle themselves back into or maintain their paychecks as time goes on.
Yeah. Holy shit. All right.
Okay. Well,
so,
bye,
all right. So, are you going to go off, or should I?
Oh, if you're still streaming, I'll just dip.
No. I'll quit the stream because.
Okay.
I'm not going to continue anyway. So thank you very much, everyone, for showing up and having fun with us talking all sorts of science fiction and bullshit here, and horror. We got in some horror. Yeah,
there's always a crossover there. Yep.
So yeah, thank you very much for enjoying our stuff as we enjoyed you listening to us. That's awesome. So thank you, and I'll try to get on as soon as possible because I so enjoy doing this thing, especially these kind of impromptu sci-fi horror kind of streams. So yes. All right. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you next time.
Bye, everybody.